Morning. The City of Boston Zoning Board of Appeals hearing for February 28th, 2023 is now in session. This hearing is being conducted in accordance with the applicable provisions of the open meeting law, including the updated provisions enacted by the legislature last year. The new law allows the board to continue its practice of holding virtual hearings until March 2023. This hearing of the board is being held remotely via the Zoom webinar event platform. This hearing is also being live streamed. In order to ensure this hearing of the board is open to the public, members of the public may access the hearing through telephone and video conferencing. The information for connecting to this hearing is listed on today's hearing agenda, which is posted on the public notices page of the city's website, boston.gov. Members of the public will enter the virtual hearing as attendees, which means you will not see yourself on the screen and you will be muted throughout unless administratively unmuted when asked to comment. Board members, applicants, and their attorneys or representatives will participate in the hearing as panelists, and they will appear alongside the presentation materials when speaking. Panelists are strongly encouraged to keep video on while presenting to the board. As with our in-person meetings, comments in support will be followed by comments in opposition. The order of comments is as follows: elected officials, representatives of elected officials, and members of the public. The chair may limit the number of people called upon to offer comment and the time for commenting as time constraints require. For that reason, the board prefers to hear from members of the public who are most impacted by a project, that is, those who live closest to the project. If you wish to comment on an appeal, please click the raise hand button along the bottom of your screen in the Zoom webinar platform. Click it again and your hand should go down. When the host sees your hand, you will receive a request to unmute yourself. Select yes and you should be able to talk. If you are connected to the hearing by telephone, please press *9 to raise and lower your hand. You must press *6 to unmute yourself after you receive the request from the host. Those called upon to comment will be asked to state their name and address first before they provide their comment. In the interest of time and to ensure that you have enough time to do so, please raise your hand as soon as Mr. Stembridge reads the address into the record. Do not raise your hand before the relevant address is called, or the meeting host will not know to call on you at the appropriate time. These instructions will be repeated throughout the hearing. Okay. Mr. Shepard.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, present.
Good morning. Mr. Valencia.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, community members, I'm present.
Good morning. Mr. Stembridge.
Good morning. Good day, Madam Chair, members of the board, and attendees.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, and community members.
Thank you. Ms. Panado.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, and attendees.
Thank you. Ms. LaOlivier.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. All right. Mr. Stembridge, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item we have on the agenda is for the approval of the hearing minutes from January 10th.
All right. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Shepard.
Aye.
Mr. Valencia.
Yes.
Mr. Stembridge.
Yes.
Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Ms. Panado.
Yes.
Ms. If I'm saying this wrong, please correct me. LaOlivier.
Yes, you're saying it correctly, Chevalier-Olivier. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Chair also votes yes. Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda is extensions for 9:30 a.m. only. At this point, we will ask if there are any withdrawals or deferrals at this moment or this time frame?
Okay.
And for those, and the first one on the list is BOA 940063. It's an address of 3 Aspen Wall Road. Is the applicant or participants on the team present?
I am, Mr. Secretary. This is Attorney Mike Ross from the law firm of Prince LaBelle. If I may, Madam Chair?
Yes, very briefly, just the reason for the extension and when are you expecting to need it until?
Okay, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This would be the second extension of this matter. The first one was in December of 2019, kind of right in the beginning of the pandemic. And right now what we're facing is the reasons would be really based on financial and construction based. So, I mean, to weather this period of interest rates and where they're at, we would appreciate as long as extensions you're willing to give. But we do have to request a second extension today in order to navigate that, if you would.
Okay. Okay, so are you looking, sorry, go ahead. Judy.
I'll go ahead and make a motion, Madam Chair, to extend for 1 year.
From December or from today?
When does it expire, this?
It would expire at the next meeting. So, I mean, respectfully, we would request that you extend it for 1 year from today.
Okay, I'll make a motion to extend for 1 year from today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Next on the list, we have case BOA 874269 with an address of 80 to 88 Wells Avenue. Is the applicant or any of the team members present?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Secretary. I want to say welcome to all of the new board members. I wish you well in your endeavor. I represent the applicant of 80 to 88 Wells Avenue. This was the board granted this, the variances back in January of 2019. I, like the previous extension requester, where my client was affected by the pandemic as well, and there was 2 extensions that have been granted for this particular project, the last of which expires on March of this year, March 1st, 2023. The reasons for that, Madam Chair and members, is very similar to the previous matter. 1 was the pandemic, 2 is the financing, 3 is in turn to the construction. Now, my client is presently in the planning process. The planning process has taken longer than anticipated, but hopefully would be breaking ground soon, but would need this extension to get past the March 1st, 2023 date.
Any questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I need a extension period. 1 year from today?
Yeah, 1 year from today, I like that.
Could I have the 1 year from the March 1st date, which we extended it to March 1st of 2023. Would that be okay, Mr. Collins?
Mr. Collins?
Yes, that's okay. 1 year from
Okay.
the original date. March, what was it, March 1st?
March 1st.
March 1st, yes.
Correct, 1 year from
Thank
now.
you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is case BOA 773858 with an address of 6 Evelyn Street. Is the applicant or the participant, team member present?
Yes. Yes, I'm present.
Just know the need for the extension and the extension period that you're requesting.
Yes. Requesting a 1-year extension period from today to allow us more time to work with the building department to submit plans. We had a delay due to, again, similar to the other applicants, rise in interest rates and the market conditions in the market. So we would like to request a 1-year extension from today, please.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion
Chair, I make a motion to grant the extension for 1 year from today until February 28, 2024.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
Mr. Valencia,
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Panado,
Yes.
Ms. Olivier.
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
The next case is BOA 803885 with an address of 24 Westminster Avenue. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Greg Minot. I am representing 24 Westminster Avenue and requesting a 1-year extension to allow us to complete our financing application with MOH. We had some litigation with the abutter, which was resolved, which caused a delay. Now that's been cleared, and we're requesting the 1-year extension.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve a 1-year extension from today?
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
Mr. Valencia,
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Panado,
Yes.
Ms. Olivier.
Yes.
Chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next on the list, we have case BOA 823589 with an address of 73 Rutland Street. This is the third request for an extension, which expired February 11th of this year. If extended, the new date will be February 11th, 2024. Request was requested before the expiration date. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Timothy Burke. I have that address 142 Berkeley Street in Boston, and I'm the architect for the project. We are been trying to work to get things going. We've had some struggles with contractors and financing, but we're hoping to get that ready for this summer. And so this would be, I think, the last extension we would request, and would appreciate that very much for 1 year to February 11th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve an extension to February 11th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
Mr. Valencia,
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Panado,
Yes.
Ms. Olivier.
Yes.
Chair also votes yes. The motion carries. Good luck.
Next
Thank
we
you
have-
very much.
Next, we have case BOA 1027055 with an address of 655 Saratoga Street. This is the first request for extension due to expire March 10th this year. If extended, the new date will be March 10th of 2024.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Eric Zackerson, architect for the project. The owner was unable to join us this morning, but asked me to ask for an extension. Basically, when this was approved about 2 years ago, he was hoping to build the project himself. He had owned the building for a while, was unable to find the appropriate contractor, and then has spent the last 6 months or so finding a buyer, secured a buyer, is transferring the property to a new buyer who wants to build it. The new buyer would respectfully request a 2-year extension so that the current store owner can finish out his lease before they do the construction and add 2 stories above the existing store at 655 Saratoga.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve to March 10, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge? Sorry, did I hear Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes, motion carries. Good luck.
Next on the list, we have case BOA 1019220 with an address of 645 River Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Francis, do you see this person?
Demetrius? He was on here.
Okay.
Yeah. You see him? Demetrius?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
My name is Demetrius Jane, and I have Christian Lewis co-owner with me. We got ourselves to a mess. We hired a company called VR Contracting to represent us to pretty much. Actually, he told us he could get the project moved very fast within 6 months. Here we are within a year, half a year. Nothing has done, and we've been trying to talk to him, get updates, find out where we are. He was able to give us a straight answer where the project is. We separated with him as of last month because he was pretty much not qualified to help us move the project forward.
Demetrius, for what period do you need an extension?
Until next year, we'd like to get a full year of extension. That way we can get ourselves ready with a new GC, see if we can get moving forward.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
This is the first request for the extension, which is due to expire on, as he said, on April 23rd of this year. So that the 1-year extension would be to April 23rd, 2024.
A motion to approve a 1-year extension to April 23, 2024.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Thank you so much.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes, motion carries. Good luck with that.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have case BOA 1093253, request of 97 to 101 Porter Street. This is the first request for an extension due to litigation. This will bring the expiration date to end October 8th, 2024. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Richard Lins on behalf of 97 Porter LLC. As the secretary indicated, this was a matter that was approved by the board back in 2021. Decision filing date was actually January 13th of 2021. there was some.
What is way?
Francis, can you mute Mr. Jean?
From voice.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Lins.
No problem. I don't know how much of that you heard. Hopefully it was
It's okay. We just need to really understand when you need the extension until,
Sure.
and, you know.
Yeah, so we're actually, Madam Chair, this is actually a confirmation of what the expiration date would be. In light of litigation, litigation was pending through October of 2022 when a judgment dismissal was ultimately filed with the court. Therefore, based upon the math and tolling under the Belfort decision, we would like the board to confirm that the actual expiration date is now October 8th, 2024, essentially taking into account the period for which the litigation was pending, essentially stops the clock on the 2-year limit to make use of the variance. So that is our request before the board this morning.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve an extension to October 8th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck, Mr. Lins.
Thank you very much.
We will now proceed to the rediscussions for 9:30 a.m. Are there any deferrals or withdrawals requested at this point?
Okay. Hearing none.
Hearing none, we will move on to the first case in this time frame. Case is BOA 1258611 with an address of 89 to 91 Union Street. Is the applicant or a representative present?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano with a business address of 11
Sorry.
Beacon Street.
Quick question. I'm sorry. Are there 2 companion cases with this?
There is, Madam Chair, I was just mentioning that.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay, yes. Mr. Stenbridge, if you want to read those into the record.
Yes, I certainly will, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
The second companion case would be BOA 1258613 with an address of 93 Union Street. And the third companion case would be case BOA 1258616 with an address of 45 Shepherd Street.
Great.
Thank you. And Mr. Drago, you know we have a very long agenda, so brevity is key. Just focus on the variances needed and your proposal briefly. Thank you.
Will do, Madam Chair. So what you're looking at is a rendering of a proposal to combine and then re-subdivide 3 lots and to erect a 3-unit residential condominium building at 45 Shepherd Street, which you're looking at in this rendering here. The unit will contain 3 units, as was mentioned, all condo, and 5 interior parking spaces that would go along with those units that are all housed on the ground level. The particular subdistrict, if you go to the next slide, Madam Ambassador, is a 2F 5,000. Our lot is 5,014 square feet. You can see some of the surrounding buildings. There's plenty of multifamily from 3s to residential condominiums and rental around us. If you go to the next slide, please, Madam Chair. Just to get quickly into
Hi. I'm sorry,
Right.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This case is actually with a translator.
Okay, so we need to, okay, so Mr. Drago needs to pause.
Yes.
Okay.
So Terry?
Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you, Madam Chair. OK， 咁呢個 case 咧，我哋今日講嘅咧就係3個一齊嘅 case， 一個係89號 Union Street， 仲有一個咧就係93號 Union Street， 同埋咧就係45號 Shepherd Street 嘅。咁咧你喺個圖片上邊咧就可以睇到咧呢個係佢嘅呢個嘅3D 嘅圖片啦。咁呢個圖咧就係佢個地咧就係5000幾尺嘅。OK，go ahead, Jeffrey.
Great. If we could go to the next slide, please.
And, Mr. Drago, can you confirm, I'm sorry, because you said 3 units and The listing says 6 units with 9 parking spaces.
That was so the project, Madam Chair, has really been modified over time. We started at 9 and went down to 6, and went down to 4, and now with community process are at 3, correct? And the plans that were submitted, the final set were reviewed by ISD, show the 3 units with the 5 parking spaces.
Thank you.
Okay.
And so,
excuse me.
Let Terry translate.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So 咁其實你個主席就問咧，咁我哋有上邊寫住係9個 unit 嘅點解咧就係3個 unit 係點解咧？就係因為我哋呢個項目咧根據名義啦，咁係一開始係9個 unit 嘅，之後就減到6個 unit。
6個 unit. I asked 6, not 9.
Oh, sorry. 6個 unit 9個停車位。咁咧就一開始係6個嘅，依家咧就變成4個，之後咧通過 ISD 咧又變成3個 unit 嘅。
Thank you. So the slide you're looking at now just shows this slide and the next slide show the empty parcel that we're proposing to put the building on. We can go to the next slide as well.
咁呢個上邊咧就可以睇到有一個空白嘅地段啦。咁呢個地段咧到時我哋會喺上邊起樓嘅。
And this slide gives a good idea of sort of the composition of the buildings in the street. Apartment complex to the right, 3s to the left, 1 family behind us, and 2s across the street, and some 3s.
咁你喺呢度亦都可以睇到咧，就係有好多唔同嘅樓宇啦，有一啲嘅係嗰啲公寓樓啦，有啲係家庭嘅樓宇啦。前邊後邊咧有個家庭嘅樓宇啦，對面咧亦都係嗰啲公寓嘅樓宇嚟嘅。
And we can get into the next few slides and start talking about the plans. So again, this is 3 units, all 3-bedroom, 3-bath in Unit 1, 4-bath in Unit 2, and 3-bath in Unit 3. This is family buildings, so this would all be housed by one family, Saeed, who owns the parcel.
咁呢個咧就係佢嘅一個圖片啦，你可以睇到我哋有3個單元啦。有一個係全部都係3個房間嘅，一個係3個廁所。Unit 1咧第一個單元係3個廁所，第二個單元係4個廁所，第3個單元都3個廁所。咁呢個 owner 咧叫做洗衣，咁咧佢就係呢個樓宇嘅擁有者。
If we can go to the next slides, and the next one after this. We now get into the parking area, so you can see 5 parking spaces, 3 full, 2 compact with a 20-foot turn radius, and an elevator on the ground level.
咁呢個就係佢嘅停車位啦，你可以睇到佢有5個停車位，有2個係大嘅停車位，有3個係細嘅停車位嘅。
And I think this
Terry, sorry, the other way around. 3 full, 2 compact, Terry.
Is it 3
Terry,
full?
do you want to? Yeah, 3 full.
Okay.
You said 2 full.
3個係大嘅停車位，有2個係細嘅停車位。
And I think it's just, sorry, Madam Chair. I think it's just important to show in this slide because as we worked with Councilor Braden's office in the community, we really modified our rear setback to have 11 foot 4 inches and 21 feet on the left side of the property, which gave all of that area as green space.
咁喺我哋同呢個 Braden 嘅辦公室咧，議員嘅一個辦公室亦都係傾過嘅。我哋後邊咧會有留一個11尺4英寸嘅呢個位啦，就係個空地嚟嘅。
And then if we go to the next slide, it just starts to show the upper levels. I'm going to run through these very quickly. The second level houses Unit 1, 1,665 square foot, 3-bedroom with a front deck.
咁呢度咧就係佢嘅第一個單元咧，就係1600幾尺嘅。咁亦都有一個前邊有一個辦公室，亦都有一個嘅陽台嘅。
And then as we go up to level 3 and 4, those are bi-level units, and those house bedrooms on level 3 with a deck, and Unit 3's bedroom with 1 deck.
咁咧3樓同埋4樓咧就係2層嘅，咁佢哋咧都係又係第3個單元同埋第4個單元，佢哋都係有個陽台喺度嘅。
And then finally, as we go up to the top floor, we actually through the process, removed the roof deck. And so level 4 just has a walkout terrace area, and that houses unit 2 and unit 3's upper level, which house additional bedrooms in those terraces.
咁咧，我哋4樓咧就係個屋頂嚟嘅，屋頂咧可以係行出去嘅，就係2樓第2個單元同埋第3個單元係可以去使用嘅。
And I'll just quickly go through the violations, Madam Chair. This is a 2F district. We are proposing 3 units, although as I showed the board, there is plenty of examples of multifamily 3s in the area.
咁就同你哋講講呢個違規嘅信息啦。咁呢個係 2F 嘅分區，咁咧亦都係隔離有好多嘅多家庭喺呢個附近嘅。
The FAR allowed in this area is 0.8. We're proposing 1.27.
咁呢個 FAR 就允許咧係0.8，但係我哋嘅計劃咧係were we proposing 0.27?
You missed the FAR, Mr. Drago.
I'm sorry.
He missed the.
It's 1.27.
OK， 咁我哋嘅提議咧就 FAR 係1.27嘅。
For height, we are at 4 stories at 42 feet 2 inches. We actually lowered that height from our higher point. It was 46 feet in going through the process.
好，咁咧我哋係4層啦，就係42尺2英寸。咁依家咧我哋允許嘅咧就係最高係46尺嘅。咁我哋亦都喺度做緊呢個過程。
For side yard, 10 would be required. We do have 5 on the right side, but we have 21 feet on the left, which we were asked to provide to add additional green space.
咁咧喺邊邊咧就係10丫啦，咁我哋一邊咧係5尺，另外一邊咧係21尺，我哋亦都有啲額外嘅空間咧係作為綠化嘅。
And finally, we have 2 more. Our rear yard, although 40 would be required, we're at 11, which is very close to most of the buildings in the area, if not more. And we actually, working with the counselor's office and the abutters, have agreed to provide full screening and buffering in the back, rear, and sides of the project with landscape as well as fencing.
咁後邊咧就係40尺，咁我哋亦都同議員嘅辦公室喺度傾緊咧，就係喺後邊會做一啲嘅遮擋啦嚇，我哋亦都會喺後邊有一啲嘅緩衝嘅區域，亦都有啲綠色嘅植物喺嗰度嘅。
And then finally, parking, we're close. We have 5 spaces for 3 units, but 5.25 would be required under the code. So I can pause. And I also have Eric Zackerson with me, who's the architect who designed these plans in context as well.
咁我哋有5個嘅停車位啦，係3個單元，咁即係5.25咁呢個係我哋有嘅規定啦。咁我就停喺度，咁我哋睇下我哋嘅設計師有冇乜嘢想講。
Thank you, Mr. Drago. Mr. Collins, have you reviewed the plans?
多謝你，先生。Collins 先生，你係咪有冇睇過呢個計劃咧？
Sorry, Mr. Collins, do you have any questions or about the plans?
I do not. Plans are adequate.
Thank you. Is Mr. D'Amico on?
D'Amico 先生喺咪度咧？
Any questions on the parking? Okay.
Madam Chair, I just want to confirm the parking is accessed through a front yard curb cut, is that correct? And a couple more questions, are these condos or rental? And can you go over access to the roof deck?
So there's, sorry.
Sorry, let's let the interpreter translate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 我想問下關於停車個問題啦，呢個停車係喺邊度入嘅？係咪喺前門入嘅？係咪需要咧將我哋嘅街切開佢先咁樣入去咧？呢啲係租定係自住咧？你可唔可以講講睇下我哋嘅屋頂嗰個計劃？
So I'll take one of these at a time, Ms. Spinato. So the garage is accessed through a curb cut that would be created in the front of the building next to the main entrance. The second question about the terrace, so that we took the roof deck off, so this is just a walkout from the top floor room, from the bedroom, through an access door. And pardon me, what was the third?
Oh, condos or rentals?
This is condo home for the home.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and
Pause for translation.
So 咁佢哋嘅停車嘅位置咧就係喺前門嘅，就喺佢嘅大門邊上邊。咁咧我哋需要咧將呢個嘅人行道切開佢先可以入去嘅。咁咧仲有就係我哋嘅屋頂咧係一個頂樓嚟嘅，即係從呢個嘅頂樓嘅房間度可以行出去嘅。咁呢啲屋咧全部都係自住嘅 condo 嚟嘅。
Okay, Mr. Stenbridge, did you have a question?
I have, we do have a note here from Bob D'Amico.
Okay, thank you.
BTD, saying that he approves of both plans for 83, 91, and 93 Union Street.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful. And I know someone usually asks about BPDA, so I'm just going to note that BPDA provided a recommendation based on 6 units. And so I don't know if Mr. Hampton is on and wants to comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Yes, I mean, our recommendation was made 4 months ago.
Yeah.
So obviously, over time, the plans have changed. So
exactly.
It was recommended under 6 for a denial.
So just to let folks know, so that was based on 6, and now we're talking about 3. Are there any other questions from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair, Mr. Drago, I would like to ask if you can share the specific reason why the project lost 3 housing units.
So, yeah, thank you.
Excuse me.
Mr. Valens. We actually went through about a 2-year.
I just want to translate.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, let me briefly translate. So 咁呢個Domico 咧就係 BPDA 嘅，咁佢咧就提出嘅建議就係佢哋已經批准咗呢個呢個係83、91同埋93都已經批准咗㗎啦。咁 BPDA 咧之前咧建議係6個單元嘅。
Terry, sorry. Mr. D'Amico is BTD parking, and he approved the parking. BPDA is what you're talking about right now. So I just want to make sure that's correct.
Okay, got it. 咁呢個 BPD 咧係已經批准咗佢嘅停車位啦，就係Domico 先生。咁咧 BPDA 之前咧就係批准係6個單元嘅。咁呢6個單元咧就係幾個月之前已經批准咗個計劃啦。咁依家就想問下佢哋仲有冇咩問題咁樣？依家係3個單元。
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Drago.
Thank you. Ms. Valencia, that's a great question. We did want to go forward with 6 units, although we had multiple meetings over almost a 2-year period with our neighbors, abutters, the counselor's office that had concerns about the number of units on this lot. So in our working with them, that's why we reduced the project down to 3, which they felt was more fitting to the area.
咁呢個問題咧就係話點解你哋將6個單元變成3個單元咧？咁就係話我哋喺2年嘅呢個計劃入邊咧，亦都同議員辦公室啊、同啲鄰居啊、亦都係同相關嘅人士都傾過嘅，所以咧我哋決定咧就係更加合適，就係將佢變成3個單元嘅。
Okay, so with that, may I open it up to public testimony?
而家就係公眾嘅評論啦。
Is there anyone to speak? Yes.
Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. Frank Mendoza here, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, here to testify that the applicant conducted a community outreach process through our office. They met with the Bright Nelson Improvement Association, had a number of abutters meetings. The last abutters meeting we hosted, Terry was present as well as a Mandarin interpreter as well. We had collected a number of letters of both support and opposition, which we forwarded to the board. And at this time, we'd like to defer to the judgment of the board. Thank you very much.
咁 Frank 從呢個市長辦公室嚟嘅，咁咧佢咧就話我哋之前咧亦都做咗好多嘅關於呢個社區嘅一啲會議啦，同埋咧亦都聽取咗好多社區嘅意見。咁我嗰陣時咧亦都係佢哋嘅國語嘅翻譯咁咧我哋咧亦都係提供過好多嘅建議同埋意見啦。咁我哋嘅決定咧係由我哋嘅 呢個嘅上訴委員會嚟決定啦。
Sorry, Moira?
Good morning. This is Maura McCrae from Councillor Braden's office. The councillor would like to go on record in support of the project. She'd also like to acknowledge the some of the continued concerns from the abutters, just given the sort of tight access conditions around the project and its location next to a private road that is needed to access units behind this proposed project. Given its location, the council would like to ask for provision for screening and buffering, particularly in the rear, and also just wants to put on the record that the proponent has assured us that this would be condo units. Thank you.
咁Braden 辦公室嘅負責人咧，今日亦都過嚟，佢亦都係支持呢個項目嘅。當然咧，佢亦都提出一啲佢嘅擔憂，就係佢後邊咧佢隔離有一條路咧係去到後邊嗰個屋嘅，嗰個私人嘅路嚟嘅。咁咧就希望咧你哋喺設計嘅時候考慮到呢個問題，同埋咧就喺後邊咧就係要擺上呢個嘅呢個即係咁樣嘅呢個buffer 啦嚇，亦都係有啲空缺嘅地方啊，亦都希望咧會有一啲嘅私人嘅咁樣嘅一個遮板咁樣遮住佢哋啦嚇。
Madam Chair.
Any other raised hands?
I have 5 raised hands.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We have, yes, for the testimony, we have a good number of letters of support and a fair number of letters opposed also.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Francis, did you say you had any other raised hands?
Yes, I have 6 raised hands. So King.
Okay, well, we're not going to take all 6 because we have a long day. So let's try to, all right, please.
King and William Chen, go ahead. You've been unmuted. State your name and address for the record, please.
William Chen. Yes. Hello, my name is William Chen, and
Yes.
I am a direct abutter of 45 Shepherd Street.
Can you put your address into the can you just state your address and whether you're for and against it and the reasons? Thank you.
Yes. The address is to Shepherd Place, and we are in the opposition of this project.
Okay.
我嘅名叫做 William Chan， 咁我住喺2號 Shepherd Place， 咁我哋係反對呢個項目嘅。
Thank you.
Thank you. Norman, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please. Hi, Norman. All right.
Keep moving, Francis.
Benjamin, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
It's Benjamin Marshall, and it's 95 Rear Union Street and Shepherd Place. We own about almost all of the property which is abutting this property. So Shepherd Place is private property. The neighbors have a right of way through our property. It's not a private road.
Are you speaking in support or opposition?
I'm speaking in support.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
我嘅名叫做 Benjamin， 我住喺呢個我係喺95號 Rear Union Street， 咁我哋亦都擁有喺附近嘅幾間屋，咁我咧係支持呢個項目嘅。
Thank you. Laura, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello.
Oh, there's a bit of a background, Laura.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So Laura Muti, 58 Shepherd. I'm a butter for this project in opposition. And the reason is with the construction, the new construction of 56 Winship on one side, and then adding this project on the other side will completely block in 2 families and homes on Shepherd Place and impact the quality of life of adjacent neighbors for very little benefit of the neighborhood and only financial gain for the developer. The neighbors of 2 and 3 Shepherd Place are here as well. William did not get a chance to share his feedback on why he is opposed. If you can please go back to him.
We have to keep moving forward. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Francis?
Yep. Next one is Annabella. Annabella, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Annabelle Gomes from the Brighton Allston Improvement Association. I'd just like to go on record that the proponent has come to the BIA 3 or 4 times with different designs for 964. We were unable to vote at the time because we did ask for them to go back with the mayor's office for an interpreter. And since we are unable to have an interpreter at the BIA, we cannot have the neighbors speak, and it has gone back and forth a lot, and we think it is important that they had an interpreter, so we did not take a vote on this matter, and ask the board to go ahead and vote because we will not be able to provide an interpreter.
Thank you. Francis, I see someone named Jenny needs an interpreter.
Do I need to interpret? Sorry.
Yes. Hi, Anna. Jenny, you've been unmuted.
Oh.
Hi, Jenny.
Anna, do you want to?
Yeah. Can I just summarize what Annabella was saying? Is that okay?
Can
Or
you make sure Jenny is on there first?
Yes, she's on. Hi, Jenny.
Hello?
Yes, perfect. Go ahead, Anna.
Do you hear me? Hi,
Okay,
Jen.
Anna.
Hi. So do you want me to talk about what Annabella was saying? We just keep moving on.
Well, does Jenny need translation?
Yes.
係啊，我要講中文㗎，唔該。Oh yeah, hi，你好，你講幾句，我幫你翻譯下。Jenny 你好。
So Anna, can you please ask her to put her name and address in the record?
Okay,
and
Jenny
briefly
首先呢
express her support or opposition and why.
知道。其 Jenny 麻煩你首先咧將你嘅名字同埋你嘅地址咧擺咗喺嗰個嘅聊天室嗰度，咁咧我哋知道咧你係個地址係乜嘢，同埋咧你係反對或者係支持嘅，寫中文都冇所謂嘅，我哋可以幫你。我係反對，因為我用手機我寫唔到字，我就講俾你聽，你幫我翻譯。Okay, because I'm using my cell phone, so I cannot write. I can write.
She doesn't have to write it. She doesn't have to write it, Anna. She just state her address.
Okay, 你可以去講你嘅地址係住邊度，但你唔使寫。我係2號 Shepherd Place. I live in 2nd Shepherd Place. 我就係最大嘅受害者喺呢個45號起呢個屋嘅擴建，我哋係反對佢，絕對唔准起。知道。Okay, I'm the biggest victims of this constructions of the number 45 this address constructions. I don't think they should build this. 因為呢個係只係個 small yard 嚟嘅，係非常唔合理去擴建呢個地段。This is such a small yard. This is not reasonable for the expansion. 呢個投資者唔顧我哋嘅受害人嘅建議同埋要求。完全忽略我哋嘅居民嘅健康。The developer is totally ignore the well-being of our resident and our concern and our inputs. 同埋佢依家嘅自治人係一家人，點解有機會住到3個單位？簡直係欺騙我哋嘅居民。So now it's say that it's supposed to be one family living there, but now it looks like there's three families or parties living there. This is like a cheating on us. 只可以住到3個單位咧，佢完全係欺騙緊我哋。How can one family to live in 3 different units? This is totally cheating and lying to us. 呢個已經唔誠實嘅，已經係欺騙咗我哋嘅居民，直情係希望政府唔需要俾佢起呢個建議，起呢個屋。
Anna, please ask Jenny to wrap up. Okay, so
this dishonesty is totally cheating. This is dishonesty and this is unreasonable. Jenny， 你可以或者係好快咁樣去有啲咩要再講，我哋都係聽到你嘅。我要講嘅係佢嘅藍圖雖然係改變咗，但係佢屋積仍然係咁大。Okay， 唔可以超過3層高。我哋嘅 private place。Okay. So the blueprint has changed, but then construction area is remain the same. It cannot be taller than 3-story high. 同埋咧，我哋嘅 Shepherd Place 係一個 private road， 佢哋完全唔可以佔過呢度，同埋佢嘅嗰個 tractor 啊、垃圾啊、泊車完全影響到我哋完全居民附近嘅身體健康。
Anna, please let her know that you're translating and that's it. We need to move on. Thank you.
Okay， 佢話多謝你嘅訴求，我會幫你翻譯㗎啦。So Shepherd Place is a private road. This is not right, and the trash problem and the parking problem really impacting negatively on residents like us. Thank you. 唔該晒 Jenny， 你嘅聽證。
Any other questions from the board before we take a vote?
May I respond, Madam Chair? I just feel like there's a...
Yes, thank you.
So just to point out quickly, one, this is a 5,014 square foot lot, which is one of the largest in that area. Next to us is apartment complexes. My client has tried to address every single comment over a 2-year period that the community had brought up, from lowering the height, increasing setbacks, increasing the rear yard, side yard. And just to point out, we can't fit, I mean, we're at 5 parking spaces for the 3 units. We also said these would be deed restricted for homeowner occupied only over this period of time. There's large scale development behind us and up the street that we have nothing to do with it. I think many of the neighbors have brought up as concerns with trash and construction. So we really have tried to be upfront and address every concern.
Thank you, Mr. Drago. May I have a motion? Or is there?
Make a motion to approve with BTDA design review with special attention to screening and buffering.
Would you like to put a proviso requiring the screening and buffering? Mr. Drago's already said they would, so.
Yes, with the proviso. I mean, I did hear that he said they would, and I think with BPDA design review, they can ensure that it's adequate.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stembridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier? Ms. Olivier? Is she on? Okay. Javier, is that considered an abstention? I'm not sure. She does not appear to be on.
If it's 6 out of 7, I believe that is okay. And we'll just say a remark that she was absent during this time.
Okay.
I apologize. If my name was called, I am on. I apologize.
Yes, I called you.
I apologize for that. Yes.
Are you voting yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. The chair also votes yes, motion carries. Next case.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Madam Chair. Next case is BOA 1228560 at the address of 40 Lake Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Secretary, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Peter Kohansky from Goulston and Stores, 400 Atlantic Avenue in Boston. I'm here representing.
Hello, can you hear me?
Are you part of this case, 40 Lake Street?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry, please proceed. And please, as you may have heard already, we have a long day ahead of us. Please cut to the chase. Thank you.
Of course, so I'm here representing our client, The Common Room. The Common Room is an organization dedicated to providing social opportunities for young adults with autism. The Common Room is the owner of the property at 40 Lake Street. I'm joined by Tracy Stoll, the executive director, and Tom Harrington is a board member. We're really glad to be here this morning. We were first before the board on June 7th of last year. There were a number of good questions about the project from abutters and others in the neighborhood. Several neighbors, including Secretary Galvin, who lives right next door on Lake Street, recommended a deferral, and the proponent and the board deferred at that time. Since then, we've worked really hard to answer all the neighbors' questions, primarily around the specific use of the building, traffic concerns, and the approach to parking and drop-offs. Among other things, we hired a transportation consultant, Howard Stein Hudson, to study the traffic generated by the project. This has been, at this point, a very thorough community process. We've had 3 neighborhood meetings hosted by the mayor's office. We've presented twice to the Brighton Allston Improvement Association and other stakeholders. So after that work and outreach, we think many of the neighbors are a whole lot more comfortable with the project than they were last year. I don't know if Secretary Galvin is able to attend the meeting today, but we understand that we've addressed the issues that he raised to his satisfaction. So before I proceed, I just want to note that we have agreed to a number of conditions to the zoning relief. I can circle back to those at the end if that's the best way to do that, but I want to make sure we get those on the record.
Okay.
So launching in, if you could flip back to the previous slide. So here's the context. 40 Lake Street's on the corner of Lake Street and Undine Road. It's across the street from BC's School of Theology, and just to the south is Commonwealth Avenue. Next slide, please. Just a bit about the organization. The Common Room is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to providing young adults who have autism spectrum disorder with the opportunity to connect with small groups of peers in social settings. The members are high cognitive young adults who've completed high school. Many have completed college or work internships, but they're young people who can experience social isolation due to challenges navigating the social world because of their autism. And they're looking to connect with peers for friendship and community interactions. The idea behind the house is that it will be a home-like environment, a place where members could come to participate in small group activities. And we really hope that it's going to be a very low-impact neighbor. So just to focus on one of the items of zoning relief, we were cited as a community center, which requires a conditional use permit. The common room's use is much different from what people usually think of when they think of a community center. That's the use item that ISD cited, but what we do is very different. And the community center tag led to questions from neighbors about the amount of activity and traffic that the use will generate. So I want to be as specific as we can about the common room's use of the building. The plan for the house is that the common rooms members will visit during the day and some evenings for small group activities, groups of only 4 to 6 members at a time. Activities include things like playing cards or other games, building Legos, learning to cook, watching a movie, arts projects, crafting projects, things like that. Really sort of quiet, intimate kind of uses. So in terms of the timing of the use of the house, we had a lot of questions from the neighborhood about that. We plan to hold activities during blocks that will be approximately 3 hours long. So during weekdays, there might be 6 members in the house during a morning session, an afternoon session, or an evening session. The sessions don't overlap, so there would be only 4 to 6 members in the house for activities at any one time. There would also be 1 to 2 staff members at the house to facilitate activities during those blocks. And on weekends, there might be up to 8 members during an activity session. The common room also proposes to maintain 1 residential unit on the 3rd floor, which would be occupied by 1 or a couple of caretakers for the building to make sure that it's really well maintained. We'd like to spend a minute just on the parking and drop-off plan. There were a lot of questions about traffic and parking. We just want to note that very few of the members will drive. Most of them will be dropped off or take public transportation. The green line is just south of the project site at Comm Ave. And Howard Stein Hudson, when they studied it, really found that there will be a negligible traffic impact. As for the parking plan, so this Undine Road view shows the 2 existing curb cuts. The one to the left leads to the back parking area, and the one to the right is an existing single parking space. Next slide, please. So here's the parking plan. There are a total of 7 spaces on the property. There's room for 4 spaces in the back parking area. There's also a garage within the house off of the back parking area, which has parking for an additional 2 cars. You see those tandem spaces there. And those spaces, the organization plans to be used by the caretaker. And then, as I mentioned, as you saw on the previous slide, there's that existing single parking space. And the proposal is to modify that space, to maintain it and modify it as an accessible parking space. The change in use requires an accessible route from an arrival point into the building. And the existence of that space allows us to really implement what are accessibility best practices to connect that space to a ramp on the way into the house. We've heard from some neighbors about concerns about the ramp design. The common room is still studying it, but in any event, The organization has hired a landscape architect to develop really first-rate landscaping plans. There's really the goal of making that side of the house look terrific. So just to summarize, we really don't think this is going to generate any significant traffic or drop-off issues. This is a small organization, and we have the ability to manage parking and drop-off as we go if it causes any concerns in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I'd also be glad just to read into the record the conditions, if that's helpful.
Are there any questions? Mr. Collins, have you reviewed the plans?
I have. Plans are adequate.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, with that, we can come back to you as needed, but let's take public testimony.
Yes, good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Frank Mendoza, also Brighton Liaison for the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, here to testify to the applicant's completion of the community engagement process through the Office of Neighborhood Services. They met with the Brighton Allston Improvement Association and had more than one abutters meeting. While we did forward a number of letters of both support and opposition to the board, I'd also like to make a note that there were some concerns with pickup and drop-off, concerns about the handicap ramp as configured, particularly that it might remove trees and shrubs existing on the plot. Residents also hope the building will fit in with the character of the residential neighborhood. I do know that Annabella Gomes from the Brighton Allston Improvement Association is on and would like to testify. And with that, we will defer to the judgment of the board. Thank you.
Okay, I see Councillor Braden.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm here to speak in support of the common room at 40 Lake Street. This project adds a valuable opportunity for young adults on the autism spectrum and will to meet in a supportive environment, to socialize and develop their confidence and social skills. This will be an incredibly valuable addition to our neighbourhood and meets the need of these young people. So I'm wholeheartedly supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Francis?
Yep, Madam Chair. Annabella, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Annabelle Gomes from the Brighton Allston Improvement Association. I also live on Undine Road as well, so I will speak at. The BIA had originally met with the Common Room and voted against the project. They did come back to the BIA afterwards, but with no significant changes. We do not re-vote. The only significant change that they had was to add the handicap ramp, which raised more concerns with the removal of the trees, the shrubbery, and in front of the house as well, some bushes. The concern is that they're here for a variance for that parking spot, that's front yard parking, and now that they're adding the ramp and removing the trees, they're really making the building very institutional. And we'd like to keep the character of the neighborhood. If we have them in the neighborhood, we'd like the house to look like it belongs, not an institution. We're already surrounded by institutions there. And we'd like it being addressed. We'd like to look at the drop-off perhaps on Lake Street, because Undine is a two-way street, but right there is only enough for one car to enter and exit at the same time, and there also is no sidewalk on that side, so that pedestrians coming from Town Estates and Undine and Calfa are always on the street, causing traffic with cars and pedestrians on that little corner that only allows for one car. So we really would like some attention being brought to that right there, possibly moving the drop-off on Lake Street where there is no cars parked in front of the house, and addressing how this ramp can be done without ruining the character of the neighborhood and keeping the aesthetics to a single-family area, instead of having two curb cuts, a huge ramp, and removing the trees and shrubbery.
Thank you.
We have those concerns. Thank you.
Madam?
Yes, Mr. Stenbridge.
Yes, just to note that Bob D'Amico from BTD has approved the plans for 40 Lake Street, and you may have the information from BPDA of their approval with provider.
Thank you. You answered my BTE question.
And please let me add that there are many letters of support and a few letters of opposition also.
Thank you. Francis, any other testimony?
Yes. Minor, go ahead and state your name and address, please.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Madam Chair, members of the board, Minor Perez representing the Carpenters Union. We're here to fully support this wonderful organization, and we ask for them to keep working with the community, with the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kevin, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Kevin Carrigy, 58 Crest Hill Road, Brighton. I enthusiastically support the project for 3 reasons. First, it provides much needed services. Second, the common room's been responding to community concerns in a substantive way. And third, that hasn't been spoken about, Brighton's got a long history of being a welcoming community. This project continues that tradition, hence my enthusiastic support. I thank the board. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Kevin. Eileen, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record.
Yes. Francis, how many more are there?
So there are 5, including Eileen, who I just called.
Yes, no, this is Bill Galvin. Eileen is my wife. I live at William F. Galvin, 46 Lake Street in immediate abutter. Obviously, we've had previous discussions with the board and otherwise. My greatest concerns, I think, have been addressed. I want to state them clearly for the record, though. First of all, to make sure that this use is exclusive to this particular applicant is non-transferable. I believe that's part of the proposal. Secondly, that it'll be subject to actual time review by the board at a later date. I believe that's incorporated. I believe it's 3 years. And lastly, and we've touched upon this, or the discussion so far has touched upon this, is the outside of the building, that is the lawn. The previous proposal, or the original proposal, called for use of the front lawn, at least theoretically. From my understanding and the response of the applicant, that is no longer under active consideration. The drop-off is a continuing issue. I would only point out it's a complicated issue because although statements have been made about Undine, it's also, Undine Road that is, it's also true that Lake Street is 22 feet wide and very narrow. I think that's going to continue to concern all of us to make sure that there's an acceptable approach for drop-offs, whether it be Uber lifts or private passenger cars. Lastly, I want to mention obviously the trees and shrubs are important, but I think overall the project has responded to the neighborhood concern. I've been a resident of Lake Street now for over 40 years, and obviously I'm concerned about its residential character. And this proposal, when it was initially introduced, caused concern for me. But I do think the applicant has responded in a very responsive way. They've addressed the concerns that have been raised, and at this point, I believe it should go forward. Nevertheless, I think the issues relating to drop-off and how one gets there should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Galvin. Can we take 2 more?
Yes, of course. Patrick, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Patrick Galvin, 34 Lake Street, Brighton. I'm a direct abutter. My brother's just decided I'm in agreement as long as they follow the things they've agreed to with the neighbors. I'm in favor of the project. I think everything else has been stated. So as long as they agree to the terms that we've agreed to, I'm all for it. Thank you very much.
All right, and one last, Deborah?
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Deborah Reed. I live on 48 Lakeshore Road, so I'm not a direct abutter. My concern, I think the project is a wonderful project. My concern is about cutting down mature trees. As you may know, Alston Brighton has the lowest tree cover of any district in the city. And since Lake Street is on a hill, anytime trees get cut down, groundwater continues to go down the hill. And this year, one spot on Lakeshore Road, there was so much groundwater that was just coming out where we're a retaining wall in front of somebody's house, that the sidewalk was covered with ice for ages and making it very dangerous. But even going into the street was dangerous because there was so much water, it turned into kind of an ice stream.
Thank you. I think we understand. Yes, trees and landscaping. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Please don't pave where there are trees. Thank you.
Can the applicant address a couple of those issues, the issue around landscaping, trees, shrubbery, and then just the the parking, the drop-off issue? Briefly.
Sure, thank you. As I mentioned, we're continuing to study the ramp design. The current design may require the removal of one of the existing trees. If that's required, we will replant a tree and continue with other landscaping that will mitigate both the landscaping concerns and the drainage concerns. And then on drop-off, you know, when we've taken looks at the street, we do think that drop-off on Undine is probably the best point. But as I mentioned, we're committed to making this work, especially with the 3-year sunset that we're agreeing to. And we have the ability to manage pickup and drop off. We can pull into the driveway if it's helpful. We can drop off on either Undine or Lake Street. And we'll continue to work with the neighborhood to see what works best.
Thank you. Mr. Hampton, do you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We recommended approval with design review on this, just to focus on the exterior changes and also for the front yard green space. We also asked that the board put a sunset provision on this approval of 3 years so that the appellant can come back and give an update for this use. In our original recommendation back in June, we recommended that the front yard space on the 90 taken away and that curb cut be closed because if you see in the pictures now, there are 2 curb cuts within 5 feet of each other. So we recommended that that space be taken away. I'm not going to step on Bob D'Amico's toes if BTD feels that that's adequate, but that is our recommendation. But we're in support of this project.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this applicant only with a proviso that we have a sunset provision for this approval for 3 years after issuance of the occupancy permit, so that the appellant can return to the board and update us on the use. And I'm not going to make a motion on the parking space. It sounds like there's some desire to keep that and for drop-offs. And then also just overall design review, landscaping, and buffering.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. The motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next on the list, we have case BOA 1352750 with an address of 62 North Beacon Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, applicant is present. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you please state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Amaniona Bossman. My address is 14 Stonecrest Road. I'm the general contractor for client at 62 North Beacon Street.
Okay. Briefly walk us through the violations and the proposal. Thank you.
Okay. So the violations, and we were just meeting here last year, so the violations that we had were the height, and there was questions on whether or not we had a second egress door, as well as the ceiling height in the ground floor level. I submitted a set of drawings December, providing the clarification on ceiling height, egress door. We met back with the community, did some revisions, and so the new drawing shows, instead of an additional dwelling unit, which was at the ground floor level, that's now a 1-bedroom handicap accessible unit. there is clarification, if you can see. Oh, I can't zoom in, okay. There's clarification on the ceiling height, which is 7.6. You'll also see on the second drawing, you're in the demolition drawings right now. If we go to the plan. So the red clouded area is what we had in question for the last meeting. What you're looking at, if you zoom in, you'll see there's a utility room and there's two forms of egress. One is the entrance on the side that you see going into the foyer where you'll have access into the utility room, or you'll have access into the ADA unit. And if you go around the back, you'll also see a secondary egress access. What was added is the excavation for the ground floor, and that's where you see the concrete. That's the concrete patio along with the handicap rail.
Madam Chair, can the applicant just go over the variances, what's required and what's being proposed?
Yes, that would be helpful. We don't need a rundown of the entire, all your slides. Can you please focus on the variances needed? The applicant is muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had some background noise. So the variance that we're looking for is to add the ADA ground floor unit.
I mean, we're citing FAR, multifamily use, forbidden off-street parking, loading. Can you address those violations?
So the multifamily uses, we're in a single family residential district. We're asking for the variance to build the single family into 4 units. We covered parking there. We have a driveway for parking, and there's also street parking. We do not expect to add additional parking issues on the street.
Are these condos or rentals?
These are rental units.
And how many bedrooms are we talking about per unit?
We're talking about roughly 3 bedrooms per unit.
Can you address FAR?
Can you clarify the FAR? I don't have my paperwork with me.
No. Just clarify what's required and what's being proposed.
What's required?
And what's being proposed, yes.
What's being proposed is a single-family conversion to a 3-family unit.
She's asking about the FAR violation.
Your floor area ratio, so what's your, the square footage of the building, the livable square face in the building, square footage in the building?
Let me pull up my drawings, because it's not shown on yours.
Is it on the plan someplace?
Yeah, it's on the plans. I'm just looking for it.
Hold on a second.
So are you building basement and attic as well, building out the basement and attic as livable space?
We're not building out an attic.
Okay.
But what I have the violations, yeah, I see the off-street, I see the forbidden use and the floor area ratio. We didn't have any violations on the FAR, but I'm looking to see where it's located in our drawings. So I think we had some notes on it.
Well, it's noted as a violation. That's why we're asking.
Yeah, so it looks like it's 4,000 square feet is your FAR, is your square footage. And your, hang on one second.
What size is your lot?
Hang on one second, it's just gonna take me a second to bring it up, but it's one family, 3,000.
I think the question is, can the applicant respond to that?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I had all this stuff already on the drawings, so that's why I'm just trying to go through my drawings.
Madam Chair, if I may, an allowable FAR for that zoning district is 0.
Yeah, that would help us, I think.
So 0.5 is what's allowed.
And what are they at?
So right now I'm looking at 4,000 square feet.
So, yeah. So your allowable square footage would be 2,000.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Pinato?
Yeah, it sounds like you're proposing 4,000 square feet, your allowable square footage is 2,000. Is that right?
Well, yeah, but I'm also looking at the survey drawings. It looks like the existing is 4,000 square feet.
Okay. So this is an existing building, we're just actually going into the basement.
Correct. So
Okay.
if you look at the survey, I don't know.
It's existing precondition. Okay, I get it.
We are not adding an inch in the building. It is the existing building which we are just converting the floors into units. That's all.
So you're converting it from a one family to a four family?
I got you.
Right, because there's 3 different levels.
Okay.
So
And that's
according to
okay.
the city's website, they have almost a 3,000 square foot house now.
Okay, I'm looking at the survey drawings. The survey drawings show it's 4,000 plus or minus. So
Yeah, lot
that's kind of
size,
close.
building
That's
size.
the land.
So that is including the basement, the 4,000.
Yes.
Okay. No, that's my question. And it's a walkout, it's a accessible basement, so it's a actually roll-out basement unit?
Yes, it is.
It is actually not a basement. It is on the ground level.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Just to add, we have already covered 3 parking areas, 3 parking garage. 4th could be converted, but we are using it as a utility room, and we have our own driveway, and at least 4 car parkings in the driveway.
Mr. Stembridge, any notes from Mr. D'Amico on parking?
On this case, Madam Chair.
Okay. May I have public testimony?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Frank Mendoza here, Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services, Austin Brighton Liaison. We did have an abutters meeting for this project. They also reached out to the Brighton Austin Improvement Association, but did not wind up being able to testify before them. So as a result, the Brighton Austin Improvement Association, represented today by Annabella Gomes, I believe, and the participants voted to oppose the project. They did also do some outreach with the Austin Civic Association. However, citing a lack of proper notification, the Austin Civic Association sent a letter this morning to the board stating that they would defer to the judgment of the board. Beyond that, we would like to also defer to the judgment of the board in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza.
Right. Madam Chair, I have 2 raised hands.
Okay, thank you.
Annabella?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Annabella Gomes from the Brighton Austin Improvement Association. To be clear, the first time they came to the board, they did not come to the BEIA. They did come to the BEIA, and we did vote against the project. At the time at the BEIA, they also said that it was 3 units and that they were getting rid of the additional dwelling unit in the basement. And today they're representing it again to the board. But we did actually vote against it because of the confusion and the incomplete information that was presented to us. At that time of the meeting, they also said that they were thinking of doing short-term rentals there, which raised a huge flag to us. So we have major concerns about the presentation, what exactly is going to be built, and we do not support a lower level, and 4 units in that building is way too much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anthony, you've been unmuted.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tony Disadoro, representing the Alston Civic Association. I would like to, in the same, carry on with Annabella just said about the confusion. To the ACA, this is the 4th version of this proposal. The first version was a 3-family with an ADU unit, and we explained to the proponents you can't have an ADU unit without owner occupancy because they hadn't had plans to occupy the building. Then we had a 3-family with a finished basement linked to the first floor apartment. Then we had a 3-family with an unfinished basement. And lo and behold, this morning I seen it's now a 4-family owner occupied. Now I talked to the proponent this morning, and he informed me that he now plans to occupy the building and they want a 4-family. So talk about confusion. I don't know how any civic organization could have an informed judgment and assessment of this property when it's a moving target, and every time we turn around, the proposal has changed. And like I said, we have not, on this latest one, we never received any notification prior to the hearing here about the changes. I mean, when you go from unoccupied to owner occupied, and then you go now from 3 to 4 units, those are major changes that need to be brought back to the civic organization. So we just defer judgment to the board procedurally as to how we move forward with this.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have one more raised hand.
Oh, you have one, okay, one more. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Ali, you've been unmuted. If you want to state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Shamshir Ali. I'm the owner of this property.
Okay,
to the question, in fact, I am not from this field of, business. So the saying of short term, to the question of Anna, it was just a lack of knowledge that I used that term. Just want to clarify.
Okay, so can you address the concerns about the confusion? Because I think that the board needs to understand
yes.
What the logical next step is and whether it is to go back to the community, since it sounds like
that is very true. They have all, they both parties have been very, very kind to us. It is all because of my lack of knowledge that I use such terms that created kind of confusion, because I don't understand when they say ADA and ADU and all those, because I have never.
Mr. Ali, is this a 4-family or a 3-family?
It is. It is a 4-family.
Excuse me, Chair, can I please speak?
Yes, and then we're going to go to the board.
Okay, thanks. So we met with the BIA in person, and we addressed and listened to the community, answered the questions. At the time, they mentioned that the additional dwelling unit is not allowed. It's actually a violation if the owner's not there. We take that into consideration if the owner is not occupying. So I also went and spoke with the owner and talked about the other options. And that's where we came up with just doing a ground floor unit, because it is at ground floor, and we would create an ADA unit and he would be present. This was not something that we did reach out to Tony about, so Tony, apologies on that. But we did address it with the community. We did not send several iterations. I'm not sure about where the several iterations of drawings came from when they say they received a lot of different ones. But as far as the community presentation, we've met with them at least 2 times per.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, just to make sure the board is aware, I mean, the BPDA recommendation is based on converting a single family to a 3 dwelling with an ADU. So I don't know if Mr. Hampton, you want to address that before the board either votes or discusses further? Are you on, Mr. Hampton? Okay, so just so folks know, that's what they were basing the recommendation on, which was denial without prejudice based on no plans being submitted. So I'm not sure. Any questions from the board? Okay, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, in general, I support ADU units. Now, I believe that I think this project still needs some work and conversations. I would like to ask the proponent to prepare her presentation for next time. So for that reason, I make a motion to defer this project, and so we can see her coming back in the future.
Can I suggest a denial without prejudice so that they can go and do that work and come back when they're ready? Thank you.
And I agree with prejudice.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Ms. Panado,
Yes.
Ms. Olivier.
Yes.
The chair also votes yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Next on the list, we have case BOA 1366887 with an address of 21 Arden Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, I am. Good morning to the board members. I am Stephen Pettipas, the architect, 7 Stimson Street, West Roxbury. The violations for this particular project is floor area ratio, height of building, which is number of stories, front yard, side yard setback, and off-street parking. This is an existing 2.5-story non-conforming two-family building. The side yard and front yard setbacks are existing. The project is not going to further violate that. We are proposing to take an existing unused attic space and convert it into a third unit, thereby increasing the floor area ratio by 1,176 square feet, which is really an actual increase of 500 usable square feet in comparison to what's there now. In addition to that, all 3 units will have separate entrances to each of the units. First floor is entered from Arden Street, second floor is entered from Colburn Street, those are the existing units, and the third unit will also be entered from Colburn Street. In addition to that, the off-street parking currently is 2 parking spaces. We're not proposing to increase that because we just don't have the physical land area to do so. Any questions?
Mr. Collins, have you reviewed the plans?
Yes, I did. Plans are adequate.
Okay, any questions from the board? So just to confirm, there's really no external changes, it's interior.
Well, for the existing 2 units, there are no internal changes. We are providing a third floor unit, and we are...
Right, I'm saying there's no external changes.
Oh, yes, there is. We're providing dormers at the attic level in order to create that third level. That's where the additional 500 square feet of usable space.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, may I have public testimony?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Connor Newman with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. At this time, the Mayor's Office would like to defer to the judgment of this board. Some back information on the community process. Our office held 2 abutters meetings. During the first meeting, there were some concerns over the loss of sunlight from the dormers, as well as some concerns expressed about parking. As I indicated, we had a second meeting where 2 direct abutters were in attendance, and it sounds like that meeting was very productive. We've received 16 letters of support and 1 in opposition, and it's been indicated to us that direct abutters are mostly in support of this project. With that, we defer to the judgment of this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newman.
Madam Chair, Mr. Stembridge, yes, we have letters both in support and opposition to the project. Sure.
Madam Chair, I have no raised hands.
Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Sorry, go ahead.
Motion to approve with BPDA design review.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stembridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes, motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next, we have case BOA 1268903 with an address of 18 to 20 Parkland Street. Is the applicant or a representative present?
Yes, Mr. Stembridge. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is George Moranci. I'm an attorney with the business address of 350 West Broadway in South Boston. My clients and property owners are Mark Little, Brian Kaplan, and Pierce McDermott. The site at 18 to 20 Parkman Street is a 14,865 square foot site, and it is located within a 2F 6,000 zoning subdistrict under Article 65, the Dorchester Neighborhood Zoning Article. I point out that the plans before the board today depict a revised proposal for a 6-unit condominium building rather than the 9 units originally applied for, with 9 accessory off-street parking spaces. These plans have been reviewed by ISP, by the plans examiner, and stamped and updated for today's hearing. The building has been designed to use much of the same architectural language of other buildings on Parkman Street, with the 6 units being served by rear parking area for 9 motor vehicles. In response to concerns expressed at community meetings dating at this point back to, I believe, 2019, my clients have gradually reduced surface parking and reduced the proposed unit count from 14 to 9 and now to 6, and increased usable open space on the site as a result. There's now a few thousand square feet of true green open space on the site plan, as well as approximately 1,000 square feet of unit deck and patio space for the 6 proposed units. As I mentioned, the site is nearly 15,000 square feet. As plans show, there's a 13-foot, 4-inch front yard setback with a landscaped lawn, a left side setback of 19 feet, 11 inches, a right side setback of 13 feet, 8.5 inches, and a rear yard setback of 65 feet. Each floor of the building would have 2 side-by-side units, one being a 3-bedroom and one being a 4-bedroom unit, making these condominium units ideally suited to families. The unit square footages would be 1,490, 1,510, and 1,600 square feet for the 3-bedroom units, and 1,880, 1,930, and 1,930 again for the 4-bedroom units. As to the requested zoning relief, there are 4 cited violations. Primary among these is the use violation, as a 6-family dwelling is a forbidden use within this 2F 6000 subdistrict, which is the present site here of a 3-family dwelling. There's also a violation for excessive floor area ratio. The maximum FAR here under zoning is 0.4, and this building would be at 0.81. A mitigating factor in support of these requested variances is that the lot size here, at again nearly 15,000 square feet, is one of the largest lots, the largest lot, I should say, on this street. Aside from the Jehovah's Witnesses Hall at 29 Parkman Street, it is by far the largest lot on the block. 85% of the other lots on the block are no more than half the size of this lot. Despite its large size, most of the lot will be uncovered by the proposed structure, however, and the proposed parking area has been reduced to a reasonable count of 9 spaces for 6 units. There's a cited height violation. The height limit here is 2.5 stories and 35 feet. This building is 3 stories and 33.5 feet tall. So this is a story height violation only, with the building being approximately 2 feet under the maximum vertical height limit under zoning. Finally, the 4th cited violation is for compliance with the prevailing modal front yard setback of the street. The fact is that this building setback from Parkman Street was designed to complement the setbacks of the nearest buildings on both the left and the right. And as I mentioned, therefore allows for a generous landscape front yard area over 13 feet in depth. With that, Madam Chair, I'll pause and take any questions that board members may have.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, have you reviewed the plans? Any questions or concerns? Mr. Collins? Any other members of the board with questions?
Sorry, no, the plans are adequate. I have reviewed them.
Any other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I have a raised hand.
Okay, with that, let's take public testimony.
Okay, Brian, go ahead and state your name and address, please. Hi, Brian.
Brian, are you here to speak?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I need to fix the name. I don't know why it always changes my name. But my name is Ayemide.
Sorry, real quick. Sorry. My name is Kevin Tran from the Mayor's. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Kevin Tran with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. This project has gone through multiple iterations the last 3.5 years and through 3 abutters meetings hosted by our office, decreasing significantly from its inception at 14 units to presently 6. We have received letter of support from members of the Board of Dorchester community for prior proposals. The Fuse Corner Civic Association has written a letter of support for the project. The St. Mark's Area Civic Association has written a letter of opposition. There are numbers of abutters who have signed off on a petition in opposition, and also a number of abutters in support. At this time, our office will defer judgment to the board.
Brian, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No worries. Good evening. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Ayamide Owoyo from the Office of District 4, Councilor Brian Morrell. And in regards to 18 to 20 Park Street, with 52 gathered letters of opposition and no significant changes, the council would like to go on record having deferring to the discretion of the board on this particular project.
So he's not for or against?
No, he is not. Just because of the amount of letters of opposition and the fact that no changes were made from the last time the project came before the board.
Okay, thank you. Any other raised hands?
Yes. Catherine, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name's Catherine Lobb. I live at 21 Parkman Street, across the street. And I'm opposed to this building because it's too large, too many units. And basically, I'm just opposed because it's too large.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, City Council at Large, Michael Flaherty. The council has been in opposition to this project based upon the unit count, the 14 units, then the 9 units. He was in opposition to that. As of now, the project now stands at a 6-unit proposal with 9 parking spots. The council would ask the proponent to continue to work with neighbors. At this point, with the 6-unit count and the 9 spots, council can on record support.
Thank you. Doug,
Madam Chair, this is Mr. Secretary.
Sorry, let's finish the testimony.
Thanks,
Mr. Sternberg. Thank you.
Doug, you've been unmuted. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, can I be heard? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Doug Hurley. I am trustee for the Agnes B. Hurley Trust at 15 Penhallow Street, which is 0.2 mile from this location at 18-20 Parkman Street, and former president of the St. Mark's Area Civic Association.
Are you speaking in support or opposition?
Opposition.
Okay, thank you. And for clarification, someone asked, this is now a 6-unit project.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other raised hands?
I have one more. Robert, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Robert Zaccardi. I live at 22 Parkman Street. I am an abutter. I lived in this house since 1953. I would like a few points to make. It'll only take me a minute. This is Parkman Street, is a residential street, and it consists of 1- and 2-family houses. We procured 50 signatures in opposition from the residents on Parkman Street. We believe the project is too aggressive for this residential street. The proposed 6-unit structure is the same size, 12,434 square feet as the 9-unit structure Abacus Builders proposed last year. The building design is not compatible with the existing gable roof architecture on Parkman Street. The city of Boston assessed the 1820 Parkman Street at its price, and everybody on Parkman Street is now seeing 100% more in their property taxes. So,
all right. Thank you, sir. Last raised hand, did Councilor Murphy's office go?
Not yet. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Thomas Mannion from Councilor Aaron Murphy's office. Just want to go on record that Councilor Murphy is in support of the project if it's 6 units and 9 parking spaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the applicant speak to the, whether the total envelope of the building change size or just the bedroom, just the unit count?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is George Morency. The unit count change. My clients have never felt that this building is too large for the site. As I mentioned, the building itself occupies less than half of this 15,000 square foot lot. But there has been a preference or certainly a desire in certain neighborhoods for family-size housing. These units are both 3 and 4 bedrooms. Reading just opinion pieces that have appeared in the media lately, there is sort of a bemoaning of the fact that there aren't enough of these sort of units in the city. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. With that, may I have a motion?
Before we do that, Madam Chair, just to note that,
yes, sir.
just to note that there are many letters, both in support and in opposition.
Okay. And I know, Mr. Hampton, your recommendation was based on 9 units, and so we're here to vote on 6 units. Any other questions from the board? With that, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with BPDA design review.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stembridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck.
Next on the list, we have case BOA 1411560 with an address of 646 Blue Hill Avenue. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Enrique Pepin, Director of Neighborhood Services. I have the applicant here with me in the office who needed representation, so she's doing it from our office. The project in hand here is changing the occupancy to a hair salon at the referenced address. The applicant here is the owner of it. She's gone through the process. She has the plumbing permit, the electrical permit, and she also received a letter of support for a temporary change of occupancy back in November 8th of 2022. That was approved by ISD. This used to be a Metro PCS store, and she's converting it into a hair salon. She's not changing anything in the outside, and as you can see, this is the layout of her salon.
Thank you, Mr. Pepin. Any questions from the board? Seems pretty straightforward. May I have a public testimony?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Connor Newman with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. At this time, the Mayor's Office is unaware of any concerns in the community. We'd like to defer to the judgment of this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other raised hands, Francis?
No raised hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With that, may I have a motion?
Should I make a motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd? Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stembridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, at this point, I'd like to ask if there are any withdrawals or deferrals for the 11 a.m. hearing.
Okay, hearing none, we'll keep moving forward.
Which takes us to case BOA 1263740 with an address of 64 Clockwood Street. The applicant or representative present?
Yes, Mr. Secretary. Morning.
Mr. Small? Yep.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Attorney Derek Small. I have a business address of 51 Dobson Road, Braintree, Mass. Madam Chair, we're here today seeking relief to erect a 3-family dwelling on a vacant lot. Zoning subdistrict here is a 3F 6000. Our lot size is 5,625 square feet. We have one violation, and that is lot area insufficient. And again, the 3F 6000, and we have 5,625 square feet. The application and the plans meet all other areas of the zoning code. Madam Chair, with regard to the units themselves, they're 3 beds, 2 baths, and are approximately 1,200 square feet. I'll stop there and entertain any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Small. Any questions from the board? All right, with that, may I have public testimony?
Good.
You just muted yourself, Mr. James.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. The applicant for 64 Clarkwood held an abutters meeting on September 27th, 2022, with 16 total participants in attendance, with 13 abutters present, with the abutters presenting, expressing support. There have also been numerous expressions of opposition. The Greater Mattapan Neighborhood Council is opposed. Well, no, well, they were initially opposed, but they have since updated to be in support with the following provisos. So they would like the applicant's development team has worked with the direct abutters to address significant concerns resolved during a review of construction management plans. The abutters, with the support of the GMNC, will work closely with the designated general contractor to address concerns that will significantly affect the health and quality of life for the direct abutters if not managed judiciously. So they do believe that with the agreements made on 2/27/23 with the direct abutters, the proponent will adhere to the reviewed concerns of the CMP review, construction hours, excavation, noise, dust, rodent control, and all of that. So as of now, I believe that they are in support with those following provisos, and we do have 2 letters of support, 1 letter of opposition. So as of now, the mayor's office would defer to the judgment of the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other raised hands, Francis?
Yes, Madam Chair. Cheryl, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Cheryl McDaniels, and I'm the property owner at 68 Clockwood Street, which is adjacent to this property coming up. On that extensive meeting that we had on the 27th, there were numerous concerns that we had, and yes, we did agree that we would work closely with the GC. However, any subcontractors that are going to be used as well need to address all of the neighbors, as well as having formal introductions before they come in, so that we know when they're going to start resurrecting this project, what's going to happen, what's going to take place in terms of parking. Parking is a major issue. We have several children, being Brenda Cheney across the street, her grandchildren, a lifelong member. We all are, having lived on Clockwood Street for over 43 years. Her grandchildren have direct service door to door, specific with their IEP school plan. So there's a major concern for school buses getting in the event that there's emergency vehicles and stuff. So there's a lot that we were looking to have ironed out in conjunction with working along with this plan. And Derek was involved in that meeting as well.
Mr. Small, do you want to just address the subcontractor comment that she made to confirm that?
Yes, Madam Chair. As with most projects, we have agreed to work closely with the direct abutters as construction, if approved, as the construction progresses throughout the entirety of the project.
Thank you.
I have 1 additional raised hand.
Okay, thank you.
Coletta, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Coletta Mills, and I am a direct abutter also at 68 Clockwood Street. As my sister just stated, we still have a lot of concerns. The lot size is really and truly too small for the proposed plan, and we are still in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No additional
Okay.
raised hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you. May I have a
Yes, Madam
motion?
Chair, I would like to ask the proponent
yes.
to tell us a little bit more about the roof. I was looking at the street, and all of the homes on that street have an A-frame roof.
Thank you,
That is proposed as a flat roof. So can you tell me more about the difference on the design for the connection with the environment on that roof?
Well, yeah, the proposal for the three-family, I think further down the street, there are some flat roof, some flat houses with flat roofs. But, you know, in order to get the proper headroom on the third, architect decided to go with that.
Mr. Small, I think you faded towards the end.
No, I said,
can't hear-
can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, as I was saying to Mr. Valencia's question is, I think down the other end of the street, there are some houses with flat roofs. And so the architect decided to go with the flat roof to gain the headroom third unit on the third floor.
Finish the
Thank you. Madam Chair, do we have any recommendation from the BPDA?
Not that I see.
No, this was one where we didn't have any plans for this, so we couldn't make a recommendation.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, just a note, if you don't mind, there
Yes,
are
sir.
letters of opposition and signatures in support also.
Yes, thank you. May I have a motion from the board?
Motion for approval with provisos of a BPDA design review and also proviso of the construction, and I'm not exactly sure, with the general contractor and subcontractors for the project.
So just a proviso that the applicant continue working closely with the butters
Yeah, exactly.
on contractors and subcontractors. Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Have a good day.
Madam Chair, at this point, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask if there are any withdrawals or deferrals for the 11:30 rediscussions hearing.
Yes. All right. Hearing none.
Hearing none, the next case is BOA 1405922 with an address of 70 Wayland Street. Are there any other? Oh, I'm sorry. Bear with me. There's a companion case to that also, the 70 Wayland Street. So to ask for both, if there is the applicant or a representative, is there?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry, I apologize, folks. The case number for the companion case is BOA 1434561.
Thank
All right,
you.
Mr. Drago, you know the drill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano with the business address of 11 Beacon Street, here on behalf of the applicant of 70 Wayland, the owner Willie Mandrell, who I have here, as well as Talia Canistra, who's the architect in the project. What you're looking at is an existing structure at 70 Wayland Street. This is a former church building, and it was the Little Zion Church of God that was decommissioned. They no longer use this as a congregation. My client purchased it, and the proposal is to keep the existing structure, so there'd be no work except to clean up the exterior, but to build everything inside the building. And this would be converted from a church to 6 residential condominium dwelling units, and to create 2 parking spaces to the right side of the building. As we worked with both Project Pride, as well as the Howard Ave and Magnolia Street Civic Association, there were 2 points that I want to highlight that they asked of us. One was to keep the existing structure as is and work with inside the building. And then 2 was to create some form of parking. Originally, we did not have parking. We created that as we went through community process. The lot size is 5,243 square feet. If we could go to the next slides. This particular zoning district is a 3-family 4,000. And just to go over the layouts of the structure, we would be utilizing the basement, which has 10-foot ceiling heights. They would have, those would house the bottom level for units 1 to 4 with a living area, kitchen, and 1 bathroom, no bedrooms in the basement. As we go up to the first level, that would house the lobby, mailroom, and units 1 through 4, and bathrooms. And then as we go up to the second floor, that would house units 5 through 6. Units 1 through 4 are bi-level units, and units 5 and 6 are both single-level units on the second floor. The gross square footage is 8,154 square feet of the existing structure. Just to quickly go over the violations, 1, this is a 3F district, and we're converting to 6 within the church. So we do have a use variance, additional lot size, open space, 1,200 square feet is what we are providing. I don't know if we can go into some of the slides, but you can see there is a grass area. If you go a little bit further to the next slides, there is still some open space that we're able to preserve. That's a good aerial view. We also, in terms of parking, because we're keeping the building, we could not create any additional parking besides the 2 units, but we did try to accommodate the group and the abutters. There was a lot of concern about not having a church go back because of traffic concerns, parking that happens on the weekend. So folks did ask us to make sure we kept this residential. I can pause and answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Drago. Quick question on the parking. So will you be creating a new curb cut, or is there an existing one?
So we'd be creating a curb cut that on the left, on the front of the building. And so even though it says 1 yard use, it really is the side of our existing structure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And would you have to remove that existing tree at the corner of Wayland and how it would create parking?
Yeah, so they're actually, there's a better, if we go to the next, that's the site plan. So there's 2 trees. There's actually, it's sort of sprouts. One side is on the parcel next to us, we would not touch. We're gonna try to keep that remaining trunk as best as we can. If for some reason, we think we can, we agreed that we would plant another tree in its place.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? With that,
The usage for the basement, the basement will be used how?
So that's going to be bi-level units. So right now that was existing church space, so that would be converted to have storage for the units, living area, kitchen, and 1 bathroom for those units.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. May I have public testimony?
Just a note, there is a letter of support.
Thank you.
And
Ms.
I have,
Santana?
oh, sorry. Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Keisha Santana with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. An abutters meeting was held on August 9th and October 11th. Abutters expressed concern for parking and lack of parking in the area. There were concerns with congestion. In the second abutters meeting, more parking was presented, and there was not as heavy of attendance in the first meeting. They met with local civics where similar concerns were expressed. Members of the Blue Hill Ave, Quincy Street, Howard Ave, and Magnolia Street Neighborhood Association and Project Right wrote a letter of support under the condition that the applicant meets with them regularly during the construction phase to address issues. At this time, we would like to defer judgment to the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a raised hand.
You do have a raised hand? Yeah, please.
Yes. Mike, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Michael Kozu, Project Right, 320, the letter A, Blue Avenue. This is in a very tough location, but I think residents recognize that it's a question of restoring a building that's in disrepair. And we feel that this is probably the best solution to what can actually be done. We look forward to continued meetings with the applicant, and the 2 off-street parking units was important for the neighbors, given the lack of parking and the congestion in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kozu.
No additional raised hands, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr.
Madam
Hampton?
Chair, members of the board.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Paul Sullivan, City Council, at-large Michael Flaherty. The council would do a record support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hampton, do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We recommended approval with design review on this. One other thing that came up during the hearing was the actual parking spaces. If we could have BTD to look at that and see whether or not maybe a tandem space would be better to help save the tree. But we're in support of this with design review for any exterior changes.
Thank you. So are you recommending BTD review as well then?
I wouldn't mind if Bob takes a look at it. I know Ms. Pinato had some concerns about the tree, and I don't know, Jeff, whether or not, tandem spaces make more sense than side by side.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, I thought I was asking.
Go ahead, Mr. Drago.
So I think it would be okay. I just, I'm very concerned. I don't want to go against anything we agreed upon with the, happy to meet with Bob D'Amico, but I just, the Civic Association is very concerned about having some parking that works. So happy to meet with Mr. D'Amico.
Yeah, I'm not saying take it out, it's just rearranging it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. With that, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with BPDA design review and attention to the parking with BTD.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second. Thank you.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a question on the, was those 2 separate provisos that was recommended?
Yeah, a proviso for BTDA design review and also for BTD to look at the parking.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, sorry. Where was I? Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Stembridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. The motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have case BOA 1265152, the address of 10 Carson Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Kahe Lam, and I currently live in...
Can you speak up, Ms. Lam? Can you speak up? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. My name is Kahe Lam. I'm the daughter of 10 Carson Street house owner, and this is a single house, and it is owner occupied. So we did some changes on the new plot plan compared to the old one, since we discussed last time about front yard parking is not allowable, and hence we moved the 1 parking space to be next to the house. Triangle-shaped lawn on the left-hand side of the front yard will still keep there, and the paved material will still be paver stones, so that water flows direction issue can be solved. And when you see the house on the Google map, the front stair was cut a little bit during the renovation on June 2021. So spaces should be enough for a car to get in. And also the trash storage can be moved away too, but we measure the length of my car and also the space, and it is enough for my car to get in.
Okay. BTD is not on this call. Mr. Stenbridge, does Bob have a recommendation?
Yes, he does, Madam Chair, and his recommendation is to deny the proposal.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm sorry. Is it basically to reduce it from 2 cars to 1 car for parking?
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, thank you. Mr. Collins, were you about to say something?
Yeah, the drawings are inadequate. I can't see any of the dimensions on the drawings.
I see.
Everything's
Okay.
blurred out. So I don't know, you don't know the setbacks to the building, you don't know the size of the curb cut. I don't know how much room that is there.
Got it. Thank you. Other questions?
Honestly, there's not a lot there. And I know with Mr. Tavico saying to reduce it to 1, we recommended denial because if they have a 10-foot curb cut, you know, if I had to parking space, you only have 1 space. And it's literally going to be in the front yard of this semi-attached dwelling. It's a crazy lot to begin with, but it's very, very difficult to fit cars in this area.
Yeah, even from looking, on the zoning map, et cetera, in the live view, you need to at least see a dimension between the house and the abutter's lot, because I don't think that there's not enough room there to get a car.
Those are too. Stairs are going to make it very difficult to get more than 1 in there. And typically, the city and this board have not supported the privatization of an on-street parking space. We can always ask for at least 2 if you're going to have a curb cut.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, may I have public testimony?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Ross Cochran with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. The applicant has completed their community process. Our office held an abutters meeting in January of 2022 where abutters supported the project so long as a rain drainage system was installed. The local civic association supports the project and has written a letter of support on file. At this time, we'd like to defer to the board's judgment. Thank you.
And Ross, to confirm they're supporting for 2 parking spaces?
Yes, I believe so. That was what was emailed.
Thank you. Any other testimony? Francis?
No raised hands, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay, may I have a motion?
I'll motion to deny with prejudice. I need to see more on the drawings. So they can come back again.
Madam Chair.
Not with prejudice. Without prejudice, they can come
Without
back.
prejudice, sorry, I misspoke. Without prejudice. If they can show me that there's enough room there for a car to get through, then I don't see it being an issue.
Okay, so basically you need the actual dimensions. Okay.
Correct.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Ms. Stenbridge? Mr. Stenbridge? Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier? You're muted, Ms. Olivier.
I said yes, sorry.
Thank you. The chair also votes yes, motion carries. Ms. Lamb, if you could make sure that you update your drawings to reflect the actual, length and width, et cetera, that would be helpful. Dimensions, thank you.
Is it approved?
It's not approved, no.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Next case.
Next case we have is number BOA 1406159. The address is 9 Sydney Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, Mr. Secretary. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Ryan Spitz with Adams and Moranci, business address of 168 8th Street, first floor, South Boston. With me today is James Christopher from 686 Architects. This proposal seeks to raise the existing structure and erect a new 5 residential unit building with 5 parking spaces at grade on approximately about a 4,356 square foot lot. Revised plans, which are in front of you today, have been reviewed by a plans examiner and have been signed and stamped today. This proposal is located within a 1F 3000 subdistrict. However, the density of this building is in line with the other recently neighboring approved projects from across the street to the abutting building on the right. Further, this location is directly across the street from the Savin Hill train station. The first floor of this building will consist of Unit 1, a one-bedroom, approximately 663 square feet. The second floor will consist of Unit 2 and Unit 3. Both units will contain 2 bedrooms, Unit 2 being approximately 879 square feet, and Unit 3, 949 square feet. The third floor will consist of Unit 4 and Unit 5. Both units will contain 3 bedrooms, with the master bedrooms for both units being located on a recessed 4th floor. Unit 4 will be approximately 1,244 square feet, and Unit 5 at 1,328 square feet. Both units will have a small balcony located off the front and the rear of the building. The proposed FAR is a 1.43, and a 0.5 is what is allowed by code. The building height is excessive, proposing 3.5 stories at 42.9 feet to the ridge, which is in line with the neighboring structure to the right, and that can also be seen on page 11 of the plans. Front yard setback, we're seeking 0 feet to the bay, 3 feet to the dwelling. Side yard setback is 5.5 feet on the left and 11.5 feet on the right compliant. Both the front yard and the side yard were pre-existing nonconformities of the original structure. Rear yard setback, you'll notice that we're seeking 15.5 feet on the left and 16.4 feet on the right. And again, this rear yard abuts the train tracks in the property. Parking will be 3 full-size spaces at 8 foot 6 inches by 20, and 2 compact spaces at 7 foot 6 inches by 18 at grade open parking, accessed by an existing curb cut. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the board for any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, have you reviewed the plans?
I have. Plans are adequate.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Comment, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
From Bob D'Amico, that the proposed driveway is much too narrow for safe access and egress. And at the same time, we do have letters of support and opposition.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yes, ma'am. Is this the first time that the project comes to present to the board?
Yes, no, this was actually based upon an administrative deferral, so actually the first time that we're presenting the plans to the board. The original file plans were for 6 units, and going through the community process and listening to the neighbors, we've reduced the dimensions of the building as well as the unit count. You'll see that that we have many letters of support on file on record, from the surrounding abutters as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, may I have public testimony?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Ross Cochran with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. This applicant had completed their community process. Our office held an abutters meeting in June of 2022, where abutters expressed concern about density. The local civic association also opposes the project and has a letter of opposition file. At this time, we'd like to defer to the board's judgment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do have 2 raised hands.
Okay, thank you.
Elizabeth, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Doyle, and I'm the president of the Columbia Savin Hill Civic Association. And I'm here to express the opposition to the project on behalf of the Civic Association. The proponent came to both our planning committee meeting and our general meeting in the end of 2022. The planning committee, after reviewing the project and discussing the project, opposed the project with a vote of 12-1, and the general meeting opposed the project with a vote of 18-2. So the reason why we're opposed to this project is it's tearing down a tear down, which isn't the greatest thing. We also oppose the excessive size. I think the height, the number of units, and frankly, the design. Yes, there is a large building to the right, which is on Savin Hill Avenue, It's commercial on the first floor, and then there are some residential above it. We are deeply concerned that this project will really disrupt the character of and the sort of the aesthetics. This is, if anybody knows Sydney Street, it's really a quintessential Dorchester street with 2 and 3 families, and this project will absolutely have an impact on that street and that neighborhood. We also want to make the point that we wanted to work with the developer, the proponent, to reduce the number of units, the height, which is about 45 feet right now, and unfortunately, we didn't have any success with the developer adjusting the 5-unit project from an existing tear down of a 3-unit project. So I guess, well, hold on. I guess I would ask that whatever the board's decision, which we respect, will help us to work with the developer to get a project that will be approved and liked by the neighborhood association and the neighbors around it. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle.
Madam Chair, may I just respond?
Can we have the second testimony first, and then you can respond? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ryan, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Ryan Wynn, 141 Savin Hill Ave. I stand in support of 9 Sydney Street. Thank you.
Thank you. No additional hands, Madam Chair.
Mr. Spitz?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll make it brief. This property here is the first house in off of, right off of Savin Hill Ave, in close proximity to approved cases that have the same pretty much height in line across the street, as well as that Savin Hill Ave that was mentioned. So again, the height wasn't 45 feet. The height was reduced, as well as the unit count. When we first presented to the civic group, we did present a 6-unit structure, but based upon the feedback and the conversations with the immediate direct abutters, and as we have those records on support, we reduced the unit count down to 5 and the dimensional requirements as well.
Yeah, and I just would like to add that it is not across from the train. We are in support of transit-oriented development, as most people are, but this is, it's not across the street from it's a little bit down from that. Yeah.
What was the height, Mr. Spitz? And
it was 42.9 feet, and I was wondering, does the BPDA have a recommendation on this proposal?
I'm sorry, so can you just answer the reduction in height from what to what?
James Christopher is with me. I don't recall the previous height, but we are at 42.9 feet in the height at 3.5 stories because of the 4th floor is recessed.
Got it, thank you. Okay, were there any other questions from the board? Mr. Hampton, did you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We recommended approval with design review on this project, even when it was at 6.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? With that, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve with proviso to send plans to the BPDA and to the BTD to review the parking.
Okay, thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Sorry,
The chair
yes.
also- Thank you. The chair also votes yes, motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have 3 companion cases. The first being...
These deferred, I thought Stephanie, did you mention these were being deferred or no?
Yes, we were going to defer.
Okay.
The applicant is here to ask for it.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Stenbridge, if you want to read it into the record quickly.
Sure. BOA 1296092 with an address of 23 Kenilworth Street. Next is BOA 1296093 with the address of 27 to 29 Kenilworth Street. And the last one is case BOA 1296094 with an address of 49 Dudley Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, hello. My name is Evan Smith. I am one of the developers on the project. We are currently asking for a deferral as we work through a revised set of plans after numerous community meetings.
Thank you. With that, may I have a motion?
Motion to defer?
May I have a second?
We have a date, yeah. Go ahead.
The earliest date that we have is April 25th.
Okay, can I finish the vote and then you can decide on the date? Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
Chair also votes yes, motion carries. Can you provide a date?
The earliest date is April 25th.
Does that work for the applicant?
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Next, we have case BOA 1354015 with an address of 50 B Street. The applicant or representative present.
Yes, hi, how are you? My name is Daniel Kahn.
And I am also here, Chris Mercurio, as well as our architect, Zarek Skrishin. We're here to talk about our roof deck project. First of all, welcome to the board. Congratulations on your new roles, Madam Chairwoman and other attendees. As you can see, we have our plans up on the screen. This would be a private roof deck for myself and Unit A and Dan in Unit 7. This would just be in line with other developments in the area that are also taller than our building. So we just like to, build in accordance with the others in the neighborhood. So we're open to any questions at this time.
Can you confirm, are you doing a head house or a hatch?
Currently, the design is for a head house.
Okay, so just as you may be aware, our recommendations are generally around hatches. Can you just respond to that, whether that would be feasible?
I'll defer to my architect, Eric, on that one.
Is your architect on?
He should be. Eric? Oh, apparently he's on mute. It is certainly something that we have considered. If that would make this a more amenable project, we're certainly happy to adjust the plans from what we have seen in other developments in the area, that there are head houses, primarily just for safety reasons. It's an easier egress point. So that would be my response to that statement.
Madam Chair, Eric is on.
Nope, perfect.
Sorry, thank you. I was running back here.
So go ahead. Apologies.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that there was a question about Eric, about the head house versus hatch. So if you wanted to comment on that, that would be great.
We discussed it initially, and the intention was to bring the common stair up and in that way comply with the building code instead of having to get a building code variance to have the fourth level above the fourth floor access to be a hatch, and also to provide kind of access to both units without with minimizing the penetrations through the roof.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, may I have public testimony?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Connor Newman with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. This time, the Mayor's Office would like to defer to the judgment of this board. Some background information on the community process. Our office hosted a butters meeting on October 18th. It was sparsely attended. The applicant went on to the West Broadway Neighborhood Association, which indicated that they were in support of this proposal. With that, we defer to the judgment of this board. Thank you.
And really quick, Connor, if you don't mind, we sent an email, Anna White had asked us to send an email to both West Broadway and the St. Vincent Lower End Neighborhood Association. So we did go through two neighborhood associations, and we had no opposition from those two neighborhood associations.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the board. Ana Calderon from Council President Flink's office.
The councilor would like to go on record in opposition due to the quality of life issues roof decks have presented for years in South Boston that were exacerbated by the pandemic. For years, neighbors and civic groups in South Boston or seniors, persons with disabilities, young families have all complained about roof decks in the residential neighborhood, impacting neighbors' quality of life with loud parties at all hours and trash removal issues in the form of beer cans and pizza boxes left overnight and blowing off the roof decks onto the sidewalks and into the streets. This proposal will also be across the street from the West Broadway Boston housing development and potentially present similar concerns and quality of life issues for neighbors in public housing. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chairwoman, I'd like to speak.
Can we finish testimony first and then we can circle quickly back to you? Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any other-
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, City Council at Large, Michael Flaherty, I bring the sentiments of Council Flynn's office, Council President Flynn's office, Council President Rickon office.
Madam Chair, I have no raised hands.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I'd like to comment on that statement previously. Myself and my neighbor are working professionals that have ties to the community. We are both living in our condos that we own and have no intention of leaving anytime soon. As it relates to parties, we're in our 40s. I think we're long past that phase in our life. We're really looking to just improve our units and have some open airspace in line with what other developments in the area are doing. These are the other developments that have gone up are multi-unit buildings that all have access to their roof decks. We are two individuals that are looking to improve with a private roof deck. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Mr. Hampton, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We recommended approval that with a proviso that access be by hatch only and no head house.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? With that, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with a proviso that access is by hatch only.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins? Ms. Panato?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Panato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes, the motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to jump ahead to the 12 o'clock rehearing to see if there is a deferral or withdrawal.
Is Mr. Christopher raising his hand for a deferral or withdrawal?
Madam Chair, members of the board, excuse me. I missed the call for 11:30 deferrals. Would I be able to defer that now?
Is that okay, Javier?
Yes, I believe you can. Right.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Christopher, can you identify the address for the
Thank you,
record?
Madam Chair. It's 68 Rose Street.
Okay. It's the first one on the 1130s?
That's correct. At this time, we're requesting just a very brief deferral. The plans have been refiled at ISD based on a redesign, and they would just not be reviewed in time for the hearing.
Thank you.
And just to read it into the record, that's case number BOA 118-3277, as it said, with an address of 68 Rose Street.
Thank you. May I have a motion? May I have a motion to defer?
Motion to defer.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Do we have a date?
The earliest date we have is April 25th.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we specify a time for that date as well for this deferral?
If there is one available. Stephanie, is there a time available?
11:30? 30?
Thank you. Okay, back to 12 o'clock, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and the next one would be case BOA 1381733. The address is 54 to 60 Rogers Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, Mr. Secretary. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is George Moranci. I'm an attorney with the business address of 350 West Broadway in South Boston. I represent Stuart Mullally, the owner of 54 to 60 Rogers Street in South Boston at the corner of Divine Way. It is a 3,146 square foot parcel with an existing two-family dwelling. My client has applied to demolish the existing building and erect a new 4-unit townhouse-style building. This matter received an administrative deferral due to, I believe, a 5-member board. And in the interim and in response to the recommendation of the BPDA, my client directed his architect to make some changes to the plans. These are the updated plans which are being shown today, today's hearing. My client's architect reduced the curb cut width to 16 feet in total, or 8 feet per townhouse building. As these are proposed townhouse units, there's no practical way to create a single curb cut for unified access to what are 2 independent garages. I would point out that there's no parking allowed on the even side of Rogers Street, which side this is. My client additionally removed the projecting bay on the Divine Way side of the site for the concerns of the BPDA and reduced the projection of the bays on the Rogers Street side by approximately 8 inches. I would point out that on the Rogers Street side, those bays project above the property line, within the property line, and not above the current public sidewalk. My client has also set the building back from the front lot line by over 2 feet to allow for either sidewalk widening or a front yard landscaping. The BPDA recommendation expresses that FAR here should be reduced. The zoning subdistrict here is L.5, which is a local business zoning subdistrict under the 1964 base code with a maximum FAR of 0.5. The vast majority of South Boston falls within Article 68 with a maximum FAR of 2. The proposed FAR here is 2.26. Finally, with respect to the BPDA cited Article 25 concerns, I'd point out that while Article 25 does not technically apply to this project, since it is not an Article 80 project, the fact remains that all ground floor space here is either entry space, stairs, or parking, as are allowed under Article 25. With respect to the plans, the first floor of each unit would consist of a garage, a main entry for each unit, as well as trash storage and utility rooms. The second floor of each unit would consist of a living room and kitchen with a 10-foot by 3.4-foot porch in the rear. Each unit would have 2 bedrooms and baths on the 3rd floor. There would be a mezzanine level above, approximately 19 feet by 16 feet, which would not be visible from Rogers Street, as it would be set back approximately 16 feet from the front of the building. Besides FAR, relief is being sought for violations owing to insufficient lot area, open space, front and rear setbacks, and building height. The height, density, and massing of the proposed building are quite consistent with other newer projects in the area, and the modal front setback on the block is actually 0. This front setback actually exceeds that by 2 feet, of course. There's also a site violation of traffic visibility across the corner at the intersection of Rogers Street and Divine Way. Rogers Street is one way coming down to Divine Way. The building is set back at the corner by just over 2 feet on the Rogers Street side and by just over 2.5 feet on the Divine Way side, which is fairly typical for South Boston generally and for this neighborhood in particular. With that, Madam Chair, I'll pause and take any questions that members may have.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Mr. Collins, any questions on the plans?
I don't think so. Are you maintaining the rear setback of the existing building? So the one that you're planning on tearing down?
I believe I believe that that the setback may be, I don't know. I have to take a quick look at it.
In the
I'll
meantime,
continue to look here. But
Okay.
you're good. Other than that, they're adequate. They're adequate regardless. It was more of a question.
Thank you. And Mr. Hampton, I know what your recommendation was. Can you kind of comment on the, whether Mr. Morency's client has addressed those concerns?
Sarcastically, Madam Chair, if everybody just listened to what we recommend, everything would be perfect, right? Mr. Morency's aware of our recommendation, and so is the board. We appreciate the effort that they made to change the project.
Just to be clear on the parking, so the existing curb cuts, how many existing curb cuts are there? How many are proposed?
Two curb cuts are being proposed, one obviously for each of the townhouse unit garages. Currently, there's no curb cut on the Rogers Street side of the building. There is a curb cut on the Divine Way side. That curb cut would actually be able to be closed. Thus, it's near a hydrant, but there actually could be a legal parking space in the area of the current curb cut on Divine Way. So there would be actually a pickup of on-street parking of +1. And in answer to Mr. Collins' question, that's exactly correct, whether from Google Street View or from the tax parcel viewer. It is approximately, certainly no greater than the depth of the existing rear yard setback for the existing building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No, Madam Chair, no questions, but there are letters of support on record for the project.
Thank you. May I have public testimony?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Connor Newman with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. This time, the Mayor's Office would defer to the judgment of this board. Some background information on the community process. Our office hosted a butters meeting on October 17th, which reports that it was positively received from abutters. The applicant then went on to meet with the Andrew Square Civic Association and received their support as well. With that, we defer to the judgment of this board. Thank you.
Madam of the Chair, members of the board, Ana Calderon from Council President Flynn's office. The councilor would like to go on record in support of the proposal for 4 townhouses and 8 total parking spots, enabled room for trash storage due to a tough community process and feedback from neighbors and the Andrew Square Civic Association. Councilor President Flynn respectfully requests that the proponent continues to work closely with the neighbors during the construction phase and on the placement of tree canopy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, City Council at Large, Michael Flaherty, echoing sentiments of Council President Flynn's office, Councilor Con record and support.
Thank you. Any other raised hands? Okay, with that.
Yes, Madam Chair, sorry about that. Yes, I have one raised hand.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Andrew Square Civic Association, you've been unmuted.
Good morning, Madam Chair. John Pikatowski, lifelong resident of Andrew Square, co-chair Andrew Square Civic Association Development Committee. Mr. Mullally and his team have had discussions with myself and the full ASCA board, working to address our concerns and abutters' concerns, some involving the listed code violations. We're pleased with the amendments made to the 5460 Rogers Street proposal. We hope to have a continued engagement with the developer, and we'd like to go on record of being in support of this proposal.
Thank you, sir. With that, may I have a motion?
A motion to approve with BPDA design review.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Pinato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. The motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next, we have case number BOA 1367237, the address of 128 to 134 North Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano with the business address of 11 Beacon Street, here on behalf of the applicant and owner Salvatore Lopoli, and I also have Ed Gaffney with Patrick and Ahern, who's the architects on the proposal. This is a very straightforward proposal. What you're looking at is a prominent building within the north end, right at the corner of both North and Cross Streets. It's 128-134 North Street. And what we're proposing today is to change the occupancy to a single-family dwelling and to renovate the interior of the building. This would be Mr. Lopoli's private residence for him and his family. And this would also include, along with the renovations to the inside of the building, 2 parking spaces accessed on the side of the building. Just to go over this zoning district, this is in the Central Artery Special Parcel Zoning District. The lot size is 3,102 square feet. And everything that we're proposing is going to work within the existing contours of the building. So nothing would change. We're not adding up or out of the sides or changing any of the setbacks or height of the building. If we can get into the floor plans, the basement level would house a gymnasium, living area, and 2 bathrooms. The first floor would house, as I had mentioned, the garage, accessed through the front on an existing curb cut, and then entered on the side, which you can see here on this site plan. The would also house the main entry of the building, sitting area, 1 office, 1 bath, and a mezzanine level family room. The second floor of the existing building would house the living room, kitchen, pantry, dining room, another office, and 1 bathroom. And then the third floor would house the bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 3 bath, with an office and laundry area. The roof deck is existing on the building up by the pergola on the top floor. We would just be renovating that. We would not be adding additional square footage to that. Just to point out, the zoning violations are minimal. This particular district actually allows for multifamily residential or multi-unit, but Mr. Lopoli is choosing to keep this for his own personal residence. So, in fact, one family is actually a conditional use. Multifamily is allowed. And then the other violation is just on the ground level. It only would be limited to lobby space for some kind of a commercial use. And because this is residential only, we were cited for that as well. Again, we worked extensively with our neighbor, the North Bennett School, to come up with a very detailed construction management plan, which our team and their team put together as we went through this proposal, which addresses everything from trash to noise level to rodent control, even though this project is all going to be worked on within the interior of the building. This building had sat for a number of years idle, neglected in the inside. It was used as office space, Mass DOT, Greenway, and we really want to refurbish the entire inside and really make this a great place to live for the family. I can pause at this time and answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Drago. So just a quick question. So you'd be adding a curb cut to the side of the building?
No, Madam Chair, there's an existing curb cut. If you actually go up the 3rd page, there's a site plan on the property. This Mass DOT actually uses that right here. I'm sorry. You can see if you go down a little bit, you can see there's an access point now. That would allow for complete access. That would remain one to the front of the building if you want to get more to the side where the parking would be located.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Collins, any questions on the plans?
No, drawings are adequate.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No.
Yes, Jeffrey, is this property or was this property part of the DOT building? Is that a new acquisition from the DOT? What is the deal with the property?
So this was formerly owned by the Mass DOT. Over years, it was leased out to different state and city entities to rent the inside. An RFP process went out. My client purchased the building but let the existing Greenway tenants stay in there for a number of months while they could find another location. But he does own the property.
Thank you. And all the green space or the outdoor space, is that part of the property now, or is that going to be part of the DOT property?
So that would remain to the DOT and the public. Mr. Lapoli would have easement access rights to enter the garage and obviously the front of his building. But that would remain right now by Mass DOT.
And so there is public access to that green space?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, may I have public testimony? Francis?
Yes, Madam Chair. Elaine?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. Councilor Coletta has received a letter of conditional support from NURA and has reviewed the letter of commitment the North Bennett Street School had shown her. The councilor would like to go on record in support of this proposal. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am Sarah D'Amico from the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. The applicant for 128-134 North Street has had an ongoing community process. On behalf of my office, I did host an abutters meeting August 8th of 2022. The Lapoli family and their team has worked well with their direct abutter, the North Street Bennett School, where they were able to come to an agreement for a construction mitigation agreement. And regarding that, they did receive non-opposition letters from the two North End civic groups from NURA and NUNIC. And I've also received letters from the neighbors in the community that I've sent directly to the board, just voicing their support. At this time, our office would like to defer to the board's judgment. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Paul Sullivan, City Council, Michael Flaherty, Council do already his support. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Tom Mannion from Councilor Aaron Murphy's office. Due to the good community process and community support for this project, we would like to go on record as Councilor Murphy being in support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a note, we do have letters of support and in opposition also.
Francis, I see a note from Representative Reckowitz' office. Is Luigi able to speak?
Yes.
Luigi?
Don't see. Sorry, Madam Chair. Luigi, you've been unmuted.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Luigi from Rep. Michaelowicz's office, and he's in support of this project.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, I do have 4 raised hands.
Okay, is there, okay. I know we can't tell who's in support or opposition, but it would be, if there is anyone in opposition, it would be just good to hear what they have to say as well. Please proceed, Francis.
Pat, please state your name and address for the record, please. All right. Daniel, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Daniel Pasicantilli, live at 145 Commercial Street, and I'm in favor of this proposal. I had dealings with Mr. Lapoli when I worked up in Lawrence, and his philanthropic initiatives go well beyond what people would expect, and he would be a welcome neighbor to the North End. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, you've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Sarah Turner. I'm the president of the North Bennett Street School, and as such, we're a direct abutter at 150 North Street. North Bennett Street School does not oppose the project, but I do think it's just important that I go on the record because the school serves not only as a direct abutter, but sort of a community advocate. Of course, we had hoped that 128 North, the former Transportation Tunnel Administration building, would remain a public building, but we recognized that when the building was sold to a private party, it gave the owner the right to renovate their building for private use. So we focused instead on making a good faith and cooperative effort with the Lapoli company to reach the mitigation agreement that's been mentioned. And we did reach that over the course of a series of conversations in the fall, and that was really to protect and to limit the impact of our students are teaching in our operations. So given that we've reached a construction mitigation agreement successfully, the school does not oppose the requested zoning relief.
Awesome. Thank you. And last raised hand, Lupoli, you've been unmuted.
Hi, my name is Salvatore Lupoli. I'm here with my wife, Katie Lupoli, my son Sal Jr., my daughter Mary's on the phone. We just want to say we're excited about this opportunity. We're originally born in East Boston. We're very local. We have ties to local.
Thank you. I know you're the applicant, so we know you want this project. No worries. Thank you. Are there any other comments from the board? If not, may I have a motion? May I have a motion?
Motion to approve with BPDA design review.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stembridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Donato?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck. This is going to be an interesting addition to the North End. Good luck, Mr. Napoli.
Next, we have case number BOA 1341065, the address of 280 Chelsea Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Good afternoon, I should say. Richard Linz with the business address of 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, on behalf of the petitioner, Dalfior Development. Madam Chair, this is a relatively straightforward proposal as well. This is a pre-existing non-conforming 3-unit dwelling. Our proposal would change the occupancy from 3 units to 4 units, and we would accomplish that by converting the lower level space of the existing building to a 1-bedroom residential unit, approximately about 800 square feet. If we can jump to slide 3 and 4, I'll start with 3. So yeah, we do see the existing building here was actually renovated as of right. The entire building itself has already been pretty much rehabbed, and the process to convert this to a 4-unit would be done separately on an alteration permit. We don't propose to change anything with respect to the footprint of this building. All of the work would be proposed to be interior only. If we go to the next slide, I think we can see sort of how this back of this building relates. So as we saw on the front of the building, we have a full 3 levels above the sidewalk, but the slope from Chelsea Street to the rear actually does allow for a full walk out of the lower level basement. That's what we're proposing to create additional space. If we can jump to the next slide, I believe we also have one more slide, please. So our existing site plan showing the building itself, as I mentioned, we aren't proposing to change anything with respect to the footprint. So there are no additions proposed to the rear. And any of the existing nonconformities that presently exist in the site are not changed except for what is in the interior. Can we go to the next slide, please? So our program for our lower level basement renovation is on the right-hand side. We don't propose to make really any changes to the 2nd and 3rd level. Those are the existing 3-bedroom units that are already existing on the site. There is some small changes that we made with respect to the 1st level to allow for access into the lower level as well. I do have Eric Zackerson as the project architect here, who can answer any specific questions on the design. With respect to the zoning, I can just run through the relief that is being requested. This property is located at 3F 2000 district. It does allow for 3 families as a matter of right, so the current use is conforming. However, the change to 4 would create a multifamily residential use, and therefore, because that is forbidden under Article 53, we are requesting a variance for that. I would point out this neighborhood is pretty dense and does have a lot of multifamily uses in and around Chelsea Street. Chelsea Street is a main thoroughfare through East Boston, including, and I do like to make reference to this because we've been involved with the Plan East Boston project for some time. Multifamily residential is a use that is being contemplated at the new zoning change for this neighborhood. We do recognize that this addition to the lower level is in the Coastal Flood Resiliency Overlay District. And while we're not subject to that with respect to this project, I do understand the BPDA generally has concerns about that. But I would assure the board that this project is not in a flood zone, and therefore any modification at lower level would be permitted under our code. And certainly, again, I recognize the BPDA's position when it comes to coastal flood resiliency. With respect to the other items for which we require a variance, because this space, although is existing, we would be changing it to habitable space. We do increase the FAR. The current FAR is 1.27, which is already a non-conforming condition. The increase would bring us up to 1.95, so we do require a variance for that additional FAR. Because the current makeup of the property with respect to usable open space is non-conforming, the addition of a dwelling unit, although there is no change in the footprint of the building, does create additional need for usable open space. We're not proposing any roof decks. I know roof decks tend to be somewhat controversial in this particular section of East Boston. We don't propose to add that. We do propose, however, to have rear decks for each of the units and then some outdoor space for those lower level units as well. So we do feel that the open space issues can be addressed. With respect to parking, because this is a pre-existing use at 3 units with no parking currently on the site, the zoning code requires that we only add 1 parking space for the additional unit that we're proposing. Because that would be probably impossible with respect to the way the building sits on the site now, we are requesting a variance for the parking. And we also think that's for good purpose as well, because we're very cognizant of BTT's position with respect to introducing curb cuts for private parking spaces when we're not proposing any more than 2 spaces that we need. So in this case, we think a variance would be appropriate rather than taking away on-street parking, if assuming we could even create parking for off-street use. With that, I'll pause, and if there are any specific questions on the plan or the relief that we're seeking, I'm happy to answer that.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, any questions on the plans?
No, plans are adequate.
Okay, can you address the DPD mentions coastal flood resiliency overlay district issue?
I'm sorry, you'd like me to address that, Madam Chair?
Yes, it's a question for you.
Oh, I thought you were asking Mr. Collins that. I apologize.
Sorry, no.
Yeah, so you know, at East Boston, doing a lot of work at East Boston, very familiar with the overlay district requirements, certainly on Article 80 size projects where we're adding, you know, at least 20,000 square feet or 15 or more units. Compliance with coastal flood resiliency design guidelines is necessary. It's not necessary for a project of this size because we're simply adding 1 unit to an existing 3-unit building. So therefore, while we can attempt to achieve some of that in design review, you know, the real issue is whether or not we're in a flood zone, which we're not, and you know, whether or not we have to comply with flood regulations in order for our design to work. And we take the position that that's not the case here.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, may I have public testimony?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Natalia Benitez with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. ONS hosted an abutters meeting for this project on July 6, 2022. No abutters were in attendance on the call. The applicant also met with Eagle Hill Civic Association in September and October of 2022. The association voted to oppose with 9 members against it and 8 in support. Some concerns over parking were raised, no major concerns with loss of basement space because all units are small rentals. And they also stated that the yard has enough space for storage of trash and more. So at this time, our office would like to refer judgment to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public testimony?
I have no raised hands, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, maybe just clarity about why the BPDA thinks this is in a coastal flood resiliency overlay district?
Jeff, are you?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We recommended to now without prejudice. The reason why we put that language in there, and even though it's not required because it's not an Article 80 project, it is literally across the street from the flood zone. The other side of Chelsea Street is in a flood zone. So we added that language just as a recommendation, not so much as a requirement, because as Attorney Linz has mentioned, it's not an Article 80 project, but we like to add that language just to have people as a recommendation for design. But literally across the street is the flood zone.
Okay, so it's not in the flood zone. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, may I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for approval with BPDA design review.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Madam
Mr.
Chair, if I
Valencia?
could, Mr. Lynch, there's no exterior changes, right? That's already
There
been
is
done?
not, yeah, there is not. I was going to ask if we can dispense with the BPD design review.
Yeah, we
because-
don't need to do design review if there are no exterior changes.
Okay, Mr. Shepherd, okay with that?
I'll make the motion for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, last case, then a break.
Last case for the ninth. Case BOA 1406240 at the address of 333 Chelsea Street. Is the applicant or representative present?
Yes, good afternoon again, Madam Chair, members of the board. Richard Lins with the business address of 245 Sumner Street, East Boston, on behalf of the petitioner. Madam Chair, we're back before the board. We did take an administrative deferral last year. We requested a full board. I believe there was only a 5-member board present. As the slide deck is loading, I'll give a quick overview. This is a proposal to demolish an existing single-family dwelling on Chelsea Street, very close to Day Square in East Boston. Our proposal would include the construction of a new 4-unit residential dwelling. And I can walk through that once the plan populates on the screen. The bedroom sizes for each of the units, these would all be very generously sized 2-bedroom units or 2-bedroom plus units, and approximately anywhere from 1,200 to about 1,300 square feet. The lower 2 levels would be flat style units, with the upper 2 levels being bi-level, sharing the 3rd and the 4th level. We don't propose any basement. Probably a good opportunity to talk a little about flood. This particular site has a portion of it located within the flood zone, and therefore we are building this with respect to compliance as it relates to flood design guidelines. We do propose roof decks as well. Those would be private for the upper level units. And we're also looking to access those by head house, by hatch, not by head house. This is probably a good place to start. As you can see, to our left is Prescott Street, which is the boundary between this section of the neighborhood and Day Square. Day Square is the mixed-use commercial district in East Boston. As you can see from what is shown on the screen here, the buildings both left and right are all recently built or developed sites. The building to our immediate left has already been approved by this board for a 4-story, 4-unit building, quite similar, if not almost identical, to the project that we're presenting here today. If we jump down a couple of slides, I actually have a rendering that shows not only our building, but the proposed buildings that have been approved in the area. This is the current street view showing our building, the existing building to our left, and then the newly built building at 331. If we could slide to the next slide. Just different view looking back up the street towards Day Square. Next slide, please. Our existing building. Next slide, please. And this is the rendering showing our building, which is colored in red. The blue building is being shown as well as what has already been approved and approved through design review with BPDA. So sort of rounding out the remainder of this block with very similar sized buildings, all being 4-unit multifamily uses. And each of those, I believe, also have roof decks that are accessed by hatch. With respect to the relief that's necessary, this is located in 3F 2000 district, similar to the last presentation I just made, so the same zoning regulations do apply. Being located close to Day Square, as well as within walking distance of 2 public transit nodes, we feel that this project fits with the context of the surrounding area pretty well, as well as what the newly built buildings are up and down that section of Chelsea Street. With respect to the relief that would be necessary, again, because it's 3F 2000, we require a variance for the use as 4 units of multifamily use. The lot size is 1,760 square feet, which is not unlike the lots adjoining it, both left and right. The minimum lot size for the district is 2,000 square feet. However, as I mentioned, we're trying to respect what is either existing in the area currently or what has been approved already for our setbacks and our lot coverage. We do have the minimum lot width and lot frontage requirements. However, we do set our building back on the left side just under a half foot, which is the current condition that already exists. And one of the things I will point out to the board is the building that currently sits on our site actually encroaches into our neighbor's property a bit. We would be removing that encroachment with the demolition of the existing building and correcting that condition with the new building that's being proposed. So although our left side yard is somewhat shallow, it is actually an improvement over the current condition, which is an encroachment over the boundary. We do include a little bit over 3 feet on the right-hand side of our property. That does allow us to introduce openings and windows on that side of the building, as well as allow for access to the rear of the property. We are going to align our building with the modal setback that's existing currently on this section of Chelsea Street. So certainly with all of the new construction that's occurred, I believe the setback is pretty well determined and established for that part of Chelsea Street as well. We require a variance for the floor area ratio. The 1.0 that is allowed in the district would be exceeded, and therefore a variance request to allow for 2.86. The height of our building, and again, very important that we include this rendering, while it would be consistent with the buildings both left, right, and in that section of Chelsea Street, we are about 8 feet above the 35-foot height limit that is permitted, so a variance would be necessary for that as well. With respect to open space, we do include roof decks and some balconies, and therefore we would be providing available open space for the property. However, we'd be below the 300 square feet that is required, and therefore a variance would be required as well. Our rear yard setback is about 11 feet. We do require, even though this is a shallow lot condition, we still would require about 20-foot setback. I would point out that the current conditions of the existing house and the decks and any associated structures actually go all the way back to the rear property line. So during demolition, we would actually be creating an opportunity for some open space in the back that would be used in connection with creating a courtyard or a little bit of open space for the lower levels of this building. Last but not least is parking. With respect to parking for this site, the zoning code calculation would require a total of 5 spaces. As I indicated, this is within a very short walking distance of the Bremen Street Park, which has an entranceway to Airport T Station. We also are within a short walking distance to Wood Island T Station as well. While I know that parking always tends to be the concerns in the neighborhood, we feel that this particular location presents a great opportunity for some additional dense housing that is located in very close proximity to public transit. And therefore, we feel this will work contextually with the surrounding environment. I will pause to ask if there are any specific questions or concerns from the board, or if there's additional information you require.
Any questions? Mr. Collins, have you reviewed the plans? Any concerns?
No, the only question I really have is right now the building is over the other lot, right? And you're gonna bring it back to what, a 17-inch setback?
It looks like it's 0.17 feet, I believe. Mr. Zackerson should be on the call as well. I think he can confirm the actual dimension. But yeah, that is correct, Mr. Collins. We are over the boundary with an encroachment. I believe it's at about a half foot, or I'm sorry, might be a few inches.
So you're fixing that?
We are correcting that, is correct.
Okay. Yeah, no, plans are adequate. I don't have any additional questions.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, may I have public testimony?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Christian Simonelli, Boston Groundwater Trust, and we have both G-card letters from the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Natalia Benitez with the Mayor's Office of Legal Services. ONS hosted an abutters meeting for this project on May 24th, 2022. 4 abutters joined the meeting, but no support or opposition was voiced. We did receive one letter in opposition from abutters stating that parking is a major issue on this area. The applicant also met with Eagle Hill Civic Association as well as Maverick Central Neighborhood Association. Eagle Hill voted to oppose due to the density, lack of parking. Others did mention the need for housing and proximity to public transportation was a plus, and Maverick Central voted to support the project. At this time, our office would like to defer judgment to the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have no raised hands. Sorry.
Madam Chair, we do have those letters from Boston Water Sewer Commission saying it meets the requirements set forth in the groundwater overlay district requirement, and we do have a letter of opposition.
Thank you. Mr. Hampton, do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. For 333, we recommended denial without prejudice. The reason why is we recommended the same vote on 331. And what we had asked on 331, that if it was going to be approved, that it would look like a triple decker, and it looks like it has been designed that way. So if the board feels, we're staying consistent on our recommendations down this street. But if the board feels that they are going to approve that, we ask that it looks contextually the same as the previous approvals along Chipper Street.
And would BPD design review accomplish that, or would you need a specific proviso?
I believe so, yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Motion to approve with BPDA design review.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Panado?
Yes.
Ms. Olivier?
Yes.
The chair also votes yes. Motion carries. Let's take a 20-minute break.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.